Yeah, good afternoon to all my viewers and friends from the council and the panelists also. We have Dheeraj Khandelwalji, my co-chairman in the committee, Kamisa Ben as a council member and the member of the committee also. We have the panelist Jatin Trivedi ji, Sarvdeep Sandhu ji, the great personalities. Really been we understand this 5 days long program on the startup trilogy, compliance management and fundraising. And today this ninth session, though in total we have a 10 sessions, ninth session will be understanding the IPR and the startups, the know-how, the concept of the building up in a manner so that it should not comes under the glitches of some legal issues. So those kind of understanding by the two gentlemen with us from the fraternity, from the advocate fraternity, and one happens to be a general manager with Significant. So these are the under the ninth technical session and the last day of the program. Now, friends, I on behalf of myself and on behalf of the whole of the committee welcome all the participants, welcome the panelists and my other friends from the council. Now, without taking much of the time, I'll request Kamisa Ben for the opening remarks. Then moving with the Dheeraj Khandelwalji, he'll be taking the session forward. Over to Kamisa Ben. Kamisa Soni, who happens to be a in the council in the second term, and really been I really understands, though she is the only lady in our council, and she belongs to Indore, the central region part of the country, and she has proven the skill, whether we talk about the uh, as far as the conduct is concerned of the professional, or the subject which are of the technical in nature, or the which are the organizational skill. She has always been proactive in bringing out the changes in the committee. This committee also, she has guided a lot in doing something new or the other. So this is also the brain of the collective wisdom and the collective consultation by the committee members. She is proactive participants in the committee. I'll request Kamisa Soni for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. Greetings, everyone. Chairman, Committee for Development of International Trade Services and WTO, CA Hansraj Chugji, Vice Chairman, CA Dheeraj Kumar Khandelwal ji, our speakers, Jatin Trivedi ji and Sarvadeep Sandhu ji, and dear viewers. As you already know, Startup Manthan 2.0 started from 8th December, and today is the last day. I would say that second last session, and I would like to compliment our chairman Hansraj Chugji and vice chairman. Under their leadership, this committee has taken so many initiatives, and I must say that this is an excellent theme: startup trilogy, compliance, management, and fundraising, 360-degree coverage related to startups. So, coming to today's topic, IPR and startups, the know-how. So, meaning of that, we can say that procedure compliances with law and regulations and formalities related to IPR in special reference of startups. So, the basic of every startup are new ideas, creativities, and innovations which are exceptional and different from others. So you can understand how important is this session of Startup Manthan 2.0 is. And for any business, the capital funding, infrastructure, management, and so on are important, but innovation and intellect is the driving force for any startup. So coming on intellectual property rights, as you all might be aware that they include patent, copyright, industrial design, trademark, and even trade secrets. So going towards the technicality, here I would like to mention about from the side of WTO that intellectual property rights are the rights given to persons over the creations of their minds. They usually give the creator an exclusive right over the use of his or her creation for a certain period of time. So, with the rapid increase in the globalization and opening up of new vistas in India, the intellectual capital has become one of the key wealth drivers in the present era. In India, also, young entrepreneurs and investors now definitely have been getting the opportunity to develop their ideas into a commercial form with the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy also. And however, the immediate need of our requires awareness amongst entrepreneurs regarding the extreme importance of IPR and need of the adopting a proactive approach toward protecting their IPR. So, in order to change the mindset of these entrepreneurs, it is important to make them understand the need of developing an IP protection strategy at the very inception. And even investors are more likely to acquire a startup whose intellectual property rights are protected because in some way or other. So the IPR, here I would say that the IPRs cement the integrity of brands and are at the heart of the modern economy. Without IPRs, consumer couldn't be sure whether a product marked with a particular logo was genuine. And thanks to IPR, startups and other companies are incentivized to develop new and better technologies because bringing them to market increases their revenues. The India IPR is divided into various categories which offers unique protection in its own. For example, in case of trademark, there is a definition of trademark and how to protect them. Same as for copyright, for designs, for trade secrets. Also, certain law, regulation, and procedures related to that. Ki how anybody can protect their innovations and creativities. So, coming on law and regulations relating to IPR, there are different laws in different countries specific to their needs of IP rights. And even if we will talk about in Indian context also, so there are certain law and regulations which are already uploaded on their sites also. So because of this regulation on IPR, valuation, legal formality, and so many other things are there to be specifically referred during the inception of startups because violation of these laws lead to a penalties. And another point of topic on IPRs is dispute. One of the most common type of intellectual property dispute is that of infringement, where intellectual property is used without the owner's permission by some other person. So to add all these and to lend a helping hand to startups, the government has also launched IPR facilitation for startups through their Department of Industry Policy and Promotion under Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. So now talking about our own profession, in this regard, our young chartered accountant can also start new areas of practice related to consultancy, advisory, and related to compliance area also they can select. So for today's sessions, as we have with us our esteemed valuable speakers, Jatinji and Sandhuji, they will definitely cover this topic, IPR and startups, the know-how. I would though say that you will be having IPR on your expert knowledge on the thing you say from here, and our viewers will definitely gain a lot of insight on it. So thank you very much, and again over to committee side to our vice chairman Dheeraj Khandelwal.
Thank you, Khemisaben, for excellent thoughts. I think you have already covered the most of the topic going to be covered by the both the gentlemen over here. You exaggerated about the needs of the intellectual property right and need of the protection and need to be valued in proper sense. Very excellently you covered it. And thanks to the chairman, Hansraj Chugji, for bringing this concept and coming out including of this topic. So initially the topic was not covered, and he insisted, these are the topics are really in the need of the hours, and it's required to be addressed to the world parties. Well. So on behalf of 10,000 participants, which are are seeing this particular program and webinar. More than 10,000 participants are continuously on live from day one itself. I was amazed that very first day, it may be possible because of the, our chief guest, Piyush Goyalji was there, but continuously with the having all the speakers every day, every time, because it's encouraging all the participants to know more and more on the startup. So it's a thank you all the participants, and thank you the chairman Hansraj Chugji for covering this topic also in this particular startup week. So, friends, as you know that today is IPR, and already Kemisa Ben has briefed about the importance of IPR. Today both the speaker Jatin Trivedi and Sardeep Sandhuji will talk about the benefit. What is the benefit of having a IP, and what should be we should do it, and what should not do it, and what growth, how it can be part of the growth and development strategy to the IP, and it should be on what kind of idea the trademark or IPR should be select, and how we can have a valuations. I think Sardi will surely will cover up the one valuation part of on the IPR side only, not about the any startup valuation. We have the separate topic and separate in the evening, but just to touch upon the the trademark, which how to value the intrinsic value on the IPR, because it's give a value value. So coming to the topic, and Jatin Trivedi is from Ahmedabad and very leading practitioner in as an advocate in as a senior partner in YJ Trivedi and Company, and I believe that he holds the India's maximum chunk of in this particular area, and basically he's having specialized in patent and trademark attorney. His knowledge in IPR is very excellent, and his dynamism shows about he were in the he's one of the founder member of the Gujarat Innovation Society, legal subcommittee, FICCI, GSC, and various committees. And he was also part of the Gujarat University Startup and Entrepreneur Councils. And he was also on the Khadi Village Industry Commission. So in the Khadi also, he has written number of books, IPR law and practice. He also wrote the books or change the face of your startup. How you can change your startup on the face by having IPR. Handbook on IPR for startup and entrepreneur. So number of books he has written on this subject. So welcome Jatinji, a right or top of the power pack again this personality to this particular forum. Another personality is a Sardi Sandhu. He's a GM Significant, and he's a this company Significant is belong to the USA, and he's a part of he's looking entirely work in India, and he graduated from Thapa University. He did a lot of research and technology in their part. He is an expert of the US, European, and Asian various laws, because if you filed up IPR, you have to file with the various countries, and a lot of issues are emerges from that countries. So he had that kind of expertise, and he associated me more than 1,000 plus patent and trademark filing cases in his portfolio. And with this such kind of both the gentlemen, we have a experienced person. I'm sure about it. The participant will not find any kind of question, even though they have the question, will surely will take up in the last, and will try to resolve it. I think in entire startup ecosystem, we covered up from scratch to end, and today is the end. So end is to be very well. We need to know about the we already raised the fund, how to raise the fund. We know about corporate governance. We know the cash management system, and we know the government ecosystem. Everything we covered up in the last 4 days. Now it's a main crux of this entire startup is a valuation of IPR, or how we need to apply the IPR. We need to register your trademark. which country niche should be covered up. I believe that, there might be 200 countries. If I'm, a startup, which major area country should I go for it, rather than, applying for 200 countries, a IPR, or there is any way, any merit kind of solutions are there, while applying in India can be applied to all the world. So that is, I think, both the gentlemen will take up this entire ecosystem journey in the case of IPR and valuation. So I'm open to the forum, to the Jatin Devedi. He will take the first. He will take you to the slide session presentation for half an hour, and then Sakri Sandhuji. So over to Jatin Devedi.
Thank you, Dheeraj, and thank you, Kamisha, and thank you, Chukji. Good afternoon, all of you. It's a very challenging time that in the second half of the Saturday and just immediately post lunch, I have to talk on to the subject which is so-called dry and which is less interest to the industry. But I'm sure that at the end of this session, many of you will find that without the intellectual property, one cannot survive, even though if he is an individual. Friends, intellectual property, I'm not, Dheeraj and Chukji, please excuse me, I'm not going much into the formal thanks further. But yes, I respect the invitation and I'm pleased to be here. So friends, when there is an talk of the intellectual property, I believe that, the intellectual property is something that every one of us holds at least one intellectual property. That is our name by which we are known for. If somebody addressed me, if Dheeraj Bhai addressed me as a Jatin, or Kamisha says Mr. Trivedi, these are my brand. And my characteristics, the way I behave, the way I normally talk, the way I advise, or the way I handle the cases in a professional world, this will become my characteristics, which in turn will attach to my brand, that is my name. And I'm sure the professional friends whom I see on the screen will endorse to my view that this in the ingredient of any professionals, I would say the characteristics of the professionals, ultimately it leads to a reputation, and this reputation or a goodwill gives you a business. Friends, I have 20 minutes and then later we will deal with the question and answer at the end after my co-panelist will speak about the further when I end. I will just share the couple of slides, and I am welcome you all that in case if you have any question at the end, please feel free to pause the question. I believe at the chat box. Is it visible, Dheeraj? If I can ask.
Very much, very much possible.
Right, okay. So friends, I will not be teaching the intellectual property, but I will be just sharing my 25 years of experience in the field of intellectual property. And the best part what I can share with you is that recently I have been I have been a consultant of the World Intellectual Property Organization for drafting the Trademark Act of the Sri Lanka. And further to it, I have been as a part of the project of World Intellectual Property Organization. I've been in touch with the several startups and have analyzed that the startups is doing far better in India in comparison to the world. So I first of all congratulate all the startups who is listening this session, and please be careful when you are dealing with the intellectual property, which you will learn at the end of this presentation. It is sometime our Prime Minister have said or tweeted that innovate, patent, prosper, produced and prosper. This is in connection to the development of the nation. And that is how he see that our scientists and our young brains, more particularly the startups, should look for the prosperity or their own growth. Sometime back, then President Mr. Barack Obama of the United States has said that the innovation has been essential to our prosperity in the past, and it will be essential for the prosperity in the future too. Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, has said sometime that we have a duty as to state to protect our economies, and we are for the protection of the intellectual property. So when I'm addressing at the forum organized by the chartered accountants, the people who regularly deals with the financial aspects of the organization, it becomes more essential for me to connect the intellectual property with the economy. And not only me, but you have seen that the entire world is talking about that how the intellectual property is connected to the economic development of the nation. So what is an intellectual property? That refers to a creation of the mind. So as Kemisha said, that anything which is innovative, have an invention, it is a literary or artistic work, if it is a symbol, names, images, or a design used in commerce, that is more essential when it comes to an enforcement of intellectual property right. If it is used in commerce, then it will be defined as an intellectual property. That is as per the World Intellectual Property Organization, the apex body in the field of intellectual property. The law broadly recognizes the intellectual property in the form of patents, trademarks, copyright, materials, design, trade secret, and GI and farmers, breeders' rights. Friends, generally we know the intellectual property as patent, copyright, trademark, design, geographical indication, trade secret, and semiconductor. Let me take you to the characteristics of the intellectual property. The intellectual property itself is an intangible. It has an intangible value. The intellectual property is always a territorial in the country where you apply. It is easily transferable from one hand to other hand, one organization to other organization, startups to an enterprise, startup to an investors, and many more. Ultimately, it gives you an exclusivity over the creation, over the inventive steps, over the invention which you brought in the world. It's valuable assets because it's a special right given to your efforts to bring something innovative or to bring the product which is already exists with the inventive steps into it. It was surveyed by the PwC sometime back that it is estimated in the decade or so as much as 90% of the value of the world's top 2000 enterprises will consist of intellectual property. Yes, it is so important and so much valuable when it comes to a global scenario. It comes to why one should be protecting their intellectual property. I create an intellectual property, that is far and good, but why I should protect it? The answer is that it gives you an exclusivity right to exploit it and to encash from the same, to earn the royalty. It gives you a recognize your right of ownership, that you are the owning this property and these are the documents. So it's a legal rights. It allows you to lease it out. It allows you to sell. It allows you to call for the funds these days. It allows you to lease it out to a people on the royalty as the way we rent the property in physical way. It ultimately safeguards your moral right. And when I'm specifically addressing to the chartered accountant community, I would say it attracts the investment. And a startup, please understand that this attracts the investment too. I will take you a couple of the examples at the end of the presentation. It enhances the value of your business or your startups, which you have generated over the, period of your year and a half or two. But if it is well-researched product or the technology which you are bringing in through your startup, it will enhance the value if it is well-protected intellectual property. So from this pic, I just wanted to highlight that how the IP beneficiary is separated from the rest of the community. Though from the look, you both will be looking the same. From the distance, one will not be able to identify that there is a difference between two. But yes, the IP owners is always have a beneficiary or at the beneficiary end that to lead the community. And that is more important when it comes to a competitive world. Now, let me take you quickly. What is an intellectual property? Other than the symbols which you see on the left side of the presentation, these are the two renowned brands in the country. But in a technical way, a sign, word, symbol, or a combination which can distinguish the goods from one to other, and it can identify the source of origin, that is considered as a trademark. In a recent world, the trademark from the conventional part have moved to or expanded to a non-conventional trademark as well. Imagine a tennis ball manufacturer come up with a tennis ball, a long tennis ball with a grass smell into it, fresh grass smell. A tire manufacturer comes up with the rose fragrance in it, a smell mark. When you switch it on, your mobile, when it was switched off, you will hear the sound and you can identify that this mobile is whether the Apple, with this one is Samsung. So that's a sound mark. The sound mark is recognized in India. The smell and colors are yet not. But look at the color. If you see the purple color wrapper with the golden written words, and if it is chocolate, isn't it that you will identify it's a Cadbury? That's a color mark. The trademark rights are conferred under the Trademark Act 1999. The fundamental thing of the trademark is that it should be novel. It should not be in conflict with the earlier mark. If the mark some exist, it should be unique, not only in a sound, but also in a combination too. Initially, the trademark is registered for the 10 years and then it can be renewed from time to time. It can stay alive until you renew it. I'm taking the liberty of not to enter into the procedure, but just keeping the slide for the presentation at the end. In case if there is a query, I will deal with it. A patent is something where the three ingredients is very obvious, and it is very essential for you to claim the patent or grant of the patent on the invention. One is that it should be novel. It should not be exist in the world. It should be non-obvious. When I merge two colors, a yellow and a red, it obviously an orange color, right? If I throw a glass from the top, obviously it's going to crack. So this is very obvious thing. It has to be non-obvious. And third, which is major, is that it has to have the inventive steps into it. The rights are conferred under the Patent Act 1970. The claim of invention must be disclosed in a specific format, along with the abstract and a drawing of the invention. Specifically, it should be, I would advise here that it should be written by the well-experienced person in the field, at least in the subject field. A chemical invention needs to be well drafted by even if you approach your attorney or a patent lawyer, but make sure that it being handled or drafted by the person who is skilled into that particular subject. That is chemical, mechanical, environment, or something else. Patent is usually granted for 20 years and then it goes into the public domain. It has to be renewed, yes. Copyright is something is very exceptionally intellectual property right, where it doesn't call for a registration per se. So it's not a mandatory. The copyright subsists in a creative work, like a musical work, literary work, artistic, lyrics, sound recording, computer software, etc., etc. You acquire the right the moment you create it. If I start singing a song right now, I acquire the right over the same. The only and only you require the registration to establish your statutory right to enforce against some. It protected under the Copyright Act 1957. The work should be defined and well expressed. This is more important. So if I'm narrating a story, a line of a drama or a movie or a series these days, then I need to express each and every aspects of it. Make sure there are a number of judgments from the Supreme Court and the higher courts as well, which says that if it is not expressed well, even though if it is part of the story, but if not expressed exhaustively, then you can't claim the right over the same. The uniqueness of the copyright further is that it states for the lifetime of the creator and 60 years after his death. So copyright is not mandatory, as I said. The design is very unique in a sense when it comes to innovation attached to a product in reference to a shape and configuration which appeal to a naked eye and you can judge the differentiate from one product to other, then it is qualified as a design. It includes majorly the shapes and configuration, an ornamental effect and composition of the lines or a color applied to an article. It protected under the Design Act 2000. Initially, it gives a protection for 10 years and then you can renew it for 5 years. And so after the 15 years, it will be in a public domain. This intellectual property is unique in a way that it is being conferred to a group of people, not to any industry, but to an association of a farmer, to an association of a producer, to a group of a people who is skilled in art. The name of the goods that can be identified as an originating or manufactured in the territory of the country or the region or locality in that territory where it gives quality, reputation or other characteristics of the such goods is essentially attributes to its geographical origin. So if we take an example of a Darjeeling tea, if we take an example of Kolhapuri chappals, is applied to a goods. People when refer, you recollect certain goods and certain characteristics. It applied by it has to be by the group of the people who is expert into the skill, as I said. The duration is as equal as a trademark. It is for the 10 years and then it has to be renewed from time to time. To sum up the all intellectual property, the ideal example is that if you take any pen, the nib of the pen is an invention because it allows you to write the smooth way. The shape of the pen is a design. The way it is written, the Parker or Pierre Cardin or Mobla, is a copyright, or a symbol of it is a copyright because it's expressed. A trademark, the word per se. When you go into the shop and you say, give me a Parker. So one product, multiple IP is the ideal example which you normally use. And these days, the mobile, these days, the car or a vehicle. These are the ideal example for the intellectual property, having all intellectual property in one product. The IPR in the economy has a direct nexus, and I can prove it through these slides. The better and a strong IP protection will definitely stimulate the innovator or inventions. And when the nation's innovation or the innovators are stimulated, it will bring the improvised research and development skill. And if those skills are improved in any nation, be it India or anywhere of the world, it will bring a new and better product. A new and better product, undoubtedly, I don't need to say to any of the business houses or the enterprise or the startups that it gives you a bigger market. And when it gives you a bigger market, if you have a bigger pie from the cake, obviously you will have an economic growth of your organization, and ultimately it contributes to the nation growth too. So friends, as I said it in the earlier slides, and I quoted some of the leaders of the political leaders of the developing and developed nations, it is far correct that economy growth is directly connected to the IPR regime. How strong you have infrastructure of implementation of an intellectual property rights. How strong you have the enforcement system. In such nations, you will have the better economical growth. And there are vegetables and milk product as fresh as it is in the cart. But the major invention is that it doesn't call for electricity. The gentleman who has never dreamed about to be on a television, his success story has been widely covered through the national media like Discovery Channel, Aaj Tak, Handy TV, DD News, BBC, everybody has covered him. So what is takeaway from this example is that innovation does not have to be always a complex. Try to see the things around, see the problem in it, and find the solution of the same. Reach out to an appropriate person, find out whether it is protectable or not, and protect them. The another example I have, which I felt that would again further motivate to be a corporate giant. A biocon which was started with the 10,000 capital by Kiran Majumdar saw at the garage of her house. And today Biocon holds the portfolio of total close to around 1,200 patents application and holds around 984 patents and 448 trademark registered globally, covering the technology area, several, like too many things they have covered. But they are leaders today as far as the patent filings are concerned. A small start is not something that, a big start is not something which is essential to be a big. You can start with the small things at 10,000 rupees at the garage and you can be a banker. Example from a Gujarati family. I'm sure many of you must have heard about the Sesa, and if the Gujarat audience is there, I'm very sure they must be aware of. The Sesa hair oil was a brand built by a Gujarati family, and recently the True North have acquired 75% stake in the Ban Lab, which Ban Lab was the owner of the Sesa hair. They are the owner. The owner of the Sesa hair oil sold this 75% at the 700 plus crores. This shows how the company can reap the monetary benefits of the intellectual property. In the case of an Pidilite, the Pidilite acquired the Blue Coat. The Blue Coat brand is nothing but its manufacturer and distributing the adhesives and textile chemicals. But Pidilite came and have acquired the Blue Coat at the rate of 263. And mind it, friends, it is not a physical asset. So, intellectual property is something worth of crores of rupees. This is very fabulous example when we deal with the financial and economic issues. A Kodak story is that in mid of 2013, as a part of their bankruptcy sale, Kodak sold several of its patents to a company such as Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, etc. The sale was of $525 million. And by September 2013, the company emerged from its bankruptcy by giving away all the liabilities and legacy and fulfilled all liabilities and debt. So a trademark or a patent or a copyright, all your intellectual property can not only give you crores of rupees when it comes to a valuation, but it is also helpful at the time when you are in a bad shape, economically bad shape, right? So this is the example where you are in a financial crunch. You can definitely look towards your intellectual property if you are well protected there. As I said sometime in my presentation of the trademark introduction, is that the trademark is now having from conventional move to conventional to non-conventional. Recently, the Mumbai Taj Mahal Palace Hotel is over 117-year-old, and it has applied for the device of the Taj, and they got the registration of the image of the Taj building, the architectural and the structure of the Taj Mahal. Right? So this is the example for the conventional to non-conventional. Now, I would like to draw your attention that what you don't do, what you should not do. In the case of Fair and Lovely, which was occupying around 80% of the market share of lightening and brightening cream in India. I'm sure you must be aware about the racism, which was, or the movement started in the United States, where the Hindustan Lever, the Unilever, has to change their brand from the Fair and Lovely to Glow and Lovely. So what is in a sense of this slide is that when you adopt the brand, you should also consider the sentimental value of the consumer, because the Trademark Act also prohibits certain marks if they are having direct effect or attack to the sentimental value of your consumers or in general or any community. Therefore, before anybody comes and asks for, the Fair and Lovely came forward, the Unilever came forward and changed from Fair and Lovely to Glow and Lovely. The recent example of Patanjali, who has adopted the brand Coronel. Now, Coronel was already registered, Mark, in anxiety to speedy introduce the novel coronavirus, to deal the medicine to deal with the novel coronavirus. They introduced the brand called Coronel, claiming that it is affecting or beneficiary to the patients of the coronavirus affected patients. The court has criticized that and restrained them that you should not use the deceptive mark which is already registered by someone else. And not only this, but court has granted the damage too. So what you should not do is, in a case of an Amul versus General Mill, the Amul lost registered trademark tricks on the ground that the trademark was not used in due course of time. As I said it in before as well, that the intellectual property is that it should be used in course of trade. If you are not using, if you are preserving the brand for some time in future, someone will come and say that you are not using, and that's what the law is. That if you're not using, you should not own the trademark. That's the law. So upkeeping and maintaining the intellectual property is equally necessary for any trademark owner or the IP owner. In India Today versus the Nation Today, the court has said that, when the India Today moved against the National Today, and the court has rejected their plea by saying that today cannot be monopolized by you. It's a very generic word. If it is a dictionary word, will never be stronger in a protection before the court of law. So therefore, you should not adopt the certain descriptive words. Similarly, in a case of in a patent, it was a case of the Microsoft versus I4I, which is a Canadian company which is having hardly 30 employees, and they filed a suit against the Microsoft. Not only that Microsoft have been restrained by introducing the 2007 word 2007 in the US market, but they have been ordered to pay the damage of 290 million to I4I, which is a very small company in Canada. So therefore, when you apply for the patent, the prior art search is very essentially required. Similarly, in case of a PepsiCo versus Aqua Mineral, the brand Aquafina and Aquafine, the court has rejected, they granted the injunction and restrained the Aquafine and granted the damage of 5 lakh rupees. So the ideally is that when you adopt the brand, you should cause the enough search. Noel versus Letterman is a case of the infringement of a patent. The protection refused. Now, why the protection was refused? Insufficient specific narrow disclosure of the mouse antigen. No claim of the generic coverage. So when you draft the patent, it becomes very essential for you to examine that what exactly you are claiming it, what exactly you are describing your invention, right? So that is something which you can sense from this. So quick few slides and then I will close it. How IP can make it. A small innovation can bring big wonders in the world. So a Starbucks have come up with the very innovative trademarks. Usually when you go to any coffee shop, you will see that they offer the size like a large, medium and small. But what the Starbucks have invented is that they came up with the 3 different brands. It's called Venti, Grande and Tall. Now, they could have adopted the same procedure or they could have followed the same market trend, but they came up with the new inventive ideas in adopting the brand, and they have changed the entire concept. And this stays into the head of the people, and that becomes how they are unique in the world. right? A very renowned entrepreneur, Laurie. Laurie is a very famous face. If somebody is looking at, is having a look at the event, which is startup Shark Tank is the series. So she is a very famous face there as well. So, what Laurie has done, she was having a challenge of putting the earrings, and she came up with a very nice small, a design where she could keep all her earrings. And today she is, having a 400 products, and she holds almost 120 US and international patents for that. Now, today her net worth is almost 100 million. So in 96, she has invented something, and today she is holding almost 100 million. You can imagine that what is the strength of the intellectual property. Ulta Chata is harvesters, and it's an innovation from the startups, right? So I'm just keeping this again. It's a canopy that captures the rainwater and filter it and gives you energy too, solar and electricity, and give you purified water for drinking. The Arun and Anup from the Kerala came up with the innovative wind turbine, by approximately in the size of the ceiling fan, right? So it is lower in the cost and it generates 5 kilowatt. And this revolutionary product has also won them a spot in the top 20 clean tech innovation in India. So as I said, that the certain innovations gives you a social response, social respect as well. Now imagine your startup with the small things which you give a solution to the challenge which exists in the world, and then you can be enlisted into the clean tech innovation in the country. So what is the takeaway? What is the conclusion? Is that IPR enlightens men how to exploit and reap the maximum benefit of it. Invention. But to understand the IPR, there is a need to have the full force mind and multinational strategy too, right? So intellectual property is something which you can generate, but when it comes to a protection, it calls for the strategy or multi-dimensional strategy, and you need an expert hands on the same. But last slide, she is also one of the investor. And again, if you look into the Shark Tank, I'm sure you must be aware of that Dyson. Ms. Dyson has said that owning the intellectual property is like owning the land. You need to keep investing in it again and again and get a payoff. You can't simply sit back and collect the rent on the same, right? So you need a maintenance on the intellectual property too, right? With these words, I thank you once again, the ICAI, Dheeraj ji, Hansraj ji, and obviously Kamisha and other all office border for inviting me. And I'm sure that, I have justified my role, and I shall look forward for the question and answers at the end. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jatinji. Simply superb. I can say, though I was knowing something about the patent and copyright, but by having the end of this after your deliberation, just a simple example of the pen, nib, you can have a patent, and then off top of it, you can have a design, then copyright and trademark. It's give us a complete picture about the IPR. So you simply be covered the entire what should you do it and what should not be done it. And really, I believe that all the parties must definitely enlightened with this knowledge, and they will use their your thought their thought process what they need to done it. Sometimes even I was not aware of that. The copyright can also be available for us. Generally, I was having in that mind copyright for the film artist and as well. But you mentioned about the software product also, and showing the example of the pen. It's given that you can do the copyright. So a lot of things are there which in the general parlance people are not aware of it. But after this session, definitely people will utilize it. They will guide their startup. They will also consume themselves. And wherever the need expert help, utilize the few people like service and Jatin. So thank you very much, Jatinji.
Thank you very much for kind words.
So and now I'll request Sardeep Sandhuji for the initial your presentation. Kamisa, do you want to add anything? Yeah. So, Sabdiji.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It was a great session, Jatin. Like, I really liked it. Definitely, I'm looking forward to share my thoughts. I will be more focused on the numbers that Jatin has told. Like, okay, there is a $700 million. It's a very fancy number. So how you are coming up with 700 million? Or Microsoft paying 300 millions to some company, small company of 30, 40 employees. So that's the area which I will be talking about. Personally, I feel it will be a crash course. Definitely, it will require a lot of brainstorming for you guys. But I'm open to a lot of questions later on, and even after the session also. I'm happy to have an interactive session on that now. So I'm just sharing my screen for the presentation. Just give me a second. And again, once again, thank you for inviting us. And I'm just sharing my screen on that ground. Okay, I hope you can see my screen there.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds great. So first of all, once again, thank you for inviting us, and I will be focusing more on the valuation of the numbers that what numbers should be going after in the IP terms. Before that, being ex startup guy, so I always have some quick slides for idea generation and how the selection of the idea should be. So I'll moving with that. First one is ideation. So this is a general curve graph that I feel that every startup now and then will be going across it. So if we talk about idea, it is divided in two aspects. One is the creation, one is the diffusion aspect. So first of all, let's discuss about somewhere about the diffusion. How about the diffusion curve? So every startup goes through the diffusion parameter here, and it's just a matter of fact that some takes 1 year or some takes 5 years to go through this curve. So if we talk about, let's go a bit back to, especially in Indian territory, let's go back to 10 years or maybe a decade and a half. So that was the time when e-commerce companies started booming it up. So what happened was what was the major challenge that Binny or Sachin from the Flipkart or maybe the Snapdeal guys faced? The first thing was the trust factor. As Jatin also mentioned, the trust factor is the brand of yourself. So how they are lied to it, okay, we can put up a credit card there, we can put a swiping debit card there, and it will not be cheating us, or there will not be any scams to it. So that's a one aspect that was a major aspect when it comes to the e-commerce boom that was there in 2008 or 2009. So here you can see that on the very first graph, the slope that is going on the higher side, you can see that it's basically the innovators and the early adapters. So what actually Vinny and Sachin did was they went to, what was the basic thing? They were selling books at that moment. That was a completely worked strategy from the Amazons and eBays. So what they did is they went to the bookstores, and stands outside, and they see the people coming out, and they started handing them the coupons and saying that, okay, if you buy from this website, you'll get a 10-15% discount. That's the luring of the luring or creation of the brand there, so that they can have the consumer can have a trust on that. So that is how they acquire the early adapters for that. And now with the scenario, we order like about 60 or 70% of our things from the online. That's the comfort they have achieved with the trust or the brand that they have created in the past 5-6 years. And about the selection of the idea, IP comes always the second. First is the idea selection. How you going to select your idea? So if we talk about the brainstorming that is done prior to any startup, for myself, I did around 6 months of brainstorming, to be very frank, before starting my two ventures. So basically, the first, let's assume it as a trip. You're going to spend a weekend somewhere, okay? And so, and let's take an example of the NCR right now. So if you're staying in NCR, you're looking to have a small weekend getaway trip. So what you can think about, okay, you can go to Shimla or you can go to Jaipur, which is near side. But these are the relevant solutions which you can go after. But the problem with the relevant solutions are they are already consumed with a huge amount of crowd. Okay, So if I'm looking to launch a product here, or launch a venture here, I will be looking forward, okay, e-commerce is a good option. Yeah, it's a good option. It's a brilliant option, but it is already being exploited a lot. So what you will do it? You will think a lot. You'll go back and start thinking. Then you have a lower quality ideas. It will deep down. You'll see, okay, it is not working, but you have to push it out. When you push yourself further, then comes the idea that will change the world. Okay, that's the novel idea. That is how you actually go ahead with it. So as soon as you put a huge amount of time, the probability of getting a good idea increases. So this is one thing I will say that every startup should be thinking. So I'll skip this particular slides. It's basically emphasize that the startup is always focusing on ideas and industrialization, but IPR, as Jatin also mentioned, that's one of the important aspects, because end of the day, the problem with, especially with the Indian startups, is when I have a talk with the startups, they always focus on what is the tangible assets, or because IP being an intangible asset, and most of the startup doesn't add those intangible asset to their books. That's one thing which is I think need to be improved in Indian culture. So if we talk about the idea, industrialization, IPR, these three all eyes create an overlapping scenarios, which is the most important, and that is where you can actually reach the product that will be changing the market. So if I drill it further into the impact scenario, so what I've taken here is I've taken the x-axis as a time that you infuse, and then there is a y-axis which symbolizes the impact that you're going to put in. So if we talk about the first one, that is in which the impact is high, but it will take time. Okay, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. You should plan it for the longer terms. And if you are having a low impact idea but taking long time, you should skip it up. The one of the major problem that I faced with the startups is they are afraid of saying no to some idea they feel connected to. That was the case for me for my first startup, and I will ask all the panelists and all the people who are watching it, letting it go is much beneficial than sticking to and trying to run it up. That's the one thing very important. And definitely, if something which is having a low impact and low time, I think it shouldn't be your priority. The priority should be high impact and less time. That's the need of our right now, with especially VCs and all the investors looking up to a very quick solutions of the turnaround time. So I think everybody should be focusing on the startups which are having a high impact. Now comes the IPR. Jatin already mentioned that we have 5 aspects of it, so I will not put a much glance on that. So let's I think Jatin also covered what are the points which are important for an IP. So the importance of IP for safeguarding is by selling that. If we talk about, as Dheeraj sir also mentioned, that he wants to understand how many territories he need to file the trademark. That's a very tricky question. So it depends upon where you're going to sell that particular product, or you're looking for it. And end of the day, a sitting IP is never bad unless it is not being sold to anybody. Okay, so you should think about selling your IP or commercialization or licensing of it. The most beautiful thing about IPR is it's a right to you about restricting others. This is a brilliant example of it. I know. I think everybody is aware of Micromax. Micromax changed the industry of it. Micromax changed how the phone industry worked. I think somewhere deep down we all need to thank Micromax for lowering the prices of the technology here, especially in the Indian region. So what Micromax did, what they asked somebody in China to assemble the product. They put their brand value, that is Micromax name, and they started selling the IP. But lag at the patent industry. So what exactly was the reason for the fall of a Micromax? The first one was getting sued by Ericsson. Ericsson sued Micromax for the IP of the wireless technologies that Micromax was utilizing to sell their IP, sell their products in India. So if we talk about IP is not only giving a right to you manufacture, it is giving a right to you from stopping others from manufacture. That's a very important aspect of an IP. You need to stop others. You need to have some kind of monopoly, And the brilliant example of it is Qualcomm. Qualcomm is one of the giants when it comes to the chip manufacturing. Today, almost 60% of the smartphones that is being sold are having a Qualcomm chip. So they made a living out of it. So that is why it is very important to protect your IP in the areas where you feel you will be going after 10 years. Okay, it's like a mutual fund investment. You put it in money and you wait for the time till the market booms, then you capitalize it. Okay, and to capitalize it, you need royalties, you need money out of it, and definitely recognition is one of the important aspects. Qualcomm is one of the big example of it. And most importantly, the leg where we are weak as the economy is the growth of the economy with the help of IPR. Just to add to what Jatin has already mentioned, the major problem with our industry is that the filing that is being done, especially in the patents, around 70% of the filing is being done by the foreign companies in India. So at the end of the day, what they're doing is they're restricting us from manufacturing a product and selling in our territory. Okay, that happened with Micromax. Now they're coming back with their R&D and with their patent portfolio. Let's see what they do in that scenario. So if we talk about the SMEs and how they are going ahead, and the positive sign which I see in the startup culture is the growth factor here. I really liked it. We are having a 5x growth in 2020. And I'm looking forward to the 2021 because of the COVID. I think there is an impact, but definitely I feel a lot of investors are there to happy to invest till now. And we are being rated as in top 5 when it comes to the number of startups. So that's a good thing for us. And definitely government is also helping us. There is a loan section of 10 lakhs without any guarantee from the government's point of view, especially for the SMEs. But with the positive, there is always a negative of the points which we need to enhance. The most important one is the filing. Definitely it is increased in the past couple of years, but still now only almost 1,000 patents are being filed by the startups in 2017, and only 16% of the startups are filing. As initially mentioned, only 29% of the patent portfolio that is being filed is filed from the native people. That is completely opposite of what China is doing right now. That is the one reason that China economy is booming like anything, because the portfolio of the technology is cemented towards the country itself, and it is not being exploited by the other major companies, multinational companies from other countries. But the good sign, as Jatin was also mentioning, that trademark is having a good sign, and it is having 85% of the trademark is found from the native one. But to be correction factor, trademarks are country specific, so they need to have some kind of businesses in this. Yeah. So let's talk about something about the valuation. Okay, you heard of a lot of deals happening. Okay, if we talk about some of the $1 billion, and later on it was around 7 or 6 billion or 4 billion they were sold off, and most of that was the combination of the portfolio. So definitely the startup valuation will be covered from the fellow speakers in upcoming session. Just to add on that ground, the valuation of a startup is combination of intangible as well as tangible assets as well as the revenue out of it. So definitely, if you are having an IP to your business, it increases the probability of getting a higher income. Sorry. And definitely, if you have a dollar value, and if let's suppose your IP is valued at 40 million or 10 million or 5 million or even 1 million, so you can easily secure the funds from your investors, saying that I already have a $1 million IP, which I can send any moment to generate that kind of revenue. That's basically that's the initial point that I initially mentioned, that IP need to be coming under the account books of corporate, especially in India. And definitely, if you are looking for the damages, as Jatin also pointed out, so what is the number you should be asking? You can't ask for a random number. You need to have a specific number, and you need to cement that number with some calculations that you have at hand. So that is where the IP valuation is majorly important. And if we talk about the collaboration, because Definitely, I was just talking to one of my client in US last night, and we were discussing about the valuations, and we are discussing about how to make it more credible. And if we talk about the overall startup valuation, there are 7-8 methods to evaluate. Same is with the IP valuation also. But it is the most important factor is the comparison. How much it was sold and similar technology was sold, so it will be somewhere similar to that. So let me point it out. So why IPR is IPR valuation is important? Because it increases your capital. It improves you to get the funds. Whenever there is a merger or acquisition, you can ask for the separate funds for the IP. And if you're looking to generate a quick angel investment funds, you can take it as you can say I'm mortgaging my IP for the quick funds. Okay. And let's discuss about why are the reasons for it. One is the sales. Definitely, you can sell your IP, you can license, you can exchange, you can generate the profits out of it. And if you are investing a huge amount of money in the R&D section, there should be some credible value to it, which can be capitalized on the later stage of it. And that credible value comes from the amount of investment you put in your R&D and how much IP you have generated out of it. So let's see a couple of methods that are being utilized by the experts for the valuation. The valuation of an IP is divided in two aspects. One is the qualitative and second is the quantitative. Okay, so qualitative is majorly focused upon what is the strength of your patent. Okay, how much strong the patent is, and how much countries it is covering. As Dheeraj sir mentioned, if your patent is covering more countries, it means it is having a coverage of a market which is having a 10 or 15 countries. Okay, so if your patent is covering only India, so the person who will be buying it, he will only be having a rights to sell in India. So, but if somebody works in let's suppose in Europe country like in Germany, he can definitely copy your patent and start selling that product if you don't have a protection in the European territory. So the qualitative measures are the strength of the patent, the technological, the bibliographic, how much life is there for the patent out of 20 years, okay, 10 years are left or 15 years are left, how many years, that's a quantitative number. And if we talk about the quantitative, it's a most of a cost base, how the market is behaving. If we talk about, okay, European market, so if let's take an example here, let's take a 3D bioprinting example. 3D bioprinting technology is currently active in North America region, but it is not active in India. Okay, so if you have a patent which is covering North America and India, so the probability of the monetary value for the North America will be like 10 to 15 folds than what is the value for the Indian territory, because the overall sales number is very less. Okay, so that is why, because I'm addressing to the CA team here, so I will be more focused on the quantitative numbers. What is the exact cost and what is the market and what is the income out of it. So let's discuss about the income-based approach here. So let's take an example here. You're looking to buy some house. So how you will address that? Okay, what is the price of it? So simple methodically, what do? You will see what is the per square feet there and how many square feet of the plot is there, and you multiply it, you get the number. Okay, and if you are looking for a technology, and let's suppose you want to sell, you have a patent in the screens, phone screens. Okay, how you will calculate the value of that particular industry or the income that is being generated. So you will see all the phones which has been sold, and let's suppose it's of $100 million that has been that is the overall revenue for all the companies. You say, okay, this is the revenue of it, and I have a better technology which will improve it. So generally, what we do is we take a percentage share out of it. Okay, how much market I'm going to capitalize it. Okay, then we see what are the royalty rates. Royalty rates are the rates which you can actually ask for the buyers. Okay, you are selling a product at $50. Okay, but I need a $5 out of it as a royalty. And how it is being calculated? Because every industry is having a different segments, and every industry is having a different growth segment here. And definitely a discount rate, especially for the startups, the discount rate is always on a higher side. Higher side of discount rate means in the numbers are low. So that's one thing I want to clarify. Definitely, if a company is having a good credibility value, they are having a good number, or some billion-dollar company, the discount rate will be somewhere around 10 to 15%. But for the startups, it is more than 30%. Okay. And how the market method based on market, if you understand, it's the most commonly used methods, but it is not individually used methods. So what you do, you see that okay, Qualcomm sold chips for the you can say mobile phones at a price, and they had a deal of 100 million. And then there was another company who has a deal of let's suppose 90 million, and you take a comparative sum out of it. So that's how the comparison method works in general. And if we talk about the cost method, that is basically okay, you want to buy a house, you see okay, you have calculated the price of land, then you see how much material you have invested in building that house. It can be the cement, it can be the woodwork that you have done, or the painting work, or the tiles you have added. You sum up that value, and you put your charges for a couple of years that you have invested in that, and that's the overall value, and that is how the cost method is done. But definitely, if we value IP, it is done on a couple of methods, not on a single method, to make it a more appropriate results for our clients. So let's talk about the licensing. What kind of licensing you can do once you have an IP with you? It can be any form of IP. It can be a copyright, or it can be a trademark. Just to give you a smaller example, the brand protection or brand value of Apple is more than $100 billion right now. That is something, if we see the overall company's value, it's a brand value, IP asset value, other asset values, and the revenue value. So this is some of the overall company value, but out of which only 100 billion is just the brand out of it. So there are a couple of ways you can license your invention. It can be exclusive one. Okay. What happens is I have a patent with me, and I'm looking to give it to somebody because I'm not in a situation to manufacture it. Or definitely you have protected some IP which you are currently not utilizing. You, as Jatin said, the IP sitting on table is of a zero value. You need to either use it or either license it or sell it up. These are the three factors that you need to emphasize, because end of the day you're paying some money to government. There should be outcome for you also, so that you can pay that money to the maintenance fee as a government. So exclusive means you're selling it to one particular company. Let's take an example here. So as in India, I selected Mahindra. Let's take an example, Mahindra as as a company whom I will be selling this IP. So I will be licensing them. I will say, okay, I'm transferring this license to you, but it will be manufactured by the Mahindra. The most of the major companies or the big shots will always ask you to go for exclusive license, because they want to create a monopoly out of it. Okay, but it depends upon you how you want to go ahead with. So if you have given an exclusive license right to somebody, that person is solely responsible for that particular innovation or the product selling in that particular region. Okay, then comes a non-exclusive. Okay, I will say, I don't want to give you fully rights, but I want to give it to 5 companies. But what I can do is, irrespective of charging you, let's suppose 10% royalty, or charging you 100 million for the license, I will charge you 50 million. Okay, so it's a win-win situation, but I will not give you an exclusive right. So what happened here is, I've taken 5 companies whom I've given the rights. I'm charging them to 20 to 30 million dollars each. And the overall number for me will be somewhere around $120-130 million. That's a kind of a non-exclusive licenses that is being given. Then comes the cross licensing. This happens a lot commonly than licensing, especially with the billion-dollar companies. So let's assume that what happens is Google and IBM. What they do is they said, okay, Google said, I got 10 patents which you might require, and IBM say, okay, I got 15 patents you might require. They make a pool out of it. Okay, they have a bucket, and they come on accord that we both will be generating, we both will be using these IPs and will not be suing each other. Okay, so what is happening here is Google is utilizing IBM patent without paying any royalties or without paying any fees, and mean them just offering that you can utilize some of my IP and you can also earn money. So that's for the mutual benefit. That's one of the most common approach that is being done by most of the big short companies. Then comes the voluntary. Being an Elon Musk is something that can be mentioned as a voluntary licensing. Last year, mentioned that you can use my IP for the good of the world. And if there are some inventors, or I will say some companies which openly outsource their licensing without any fees, they ask you to create something good out of it. That comes under the voluntary licensing fund. And if it is a compulsory, so what happened is that if your IP is sitting there, or especially in this pandemic where the situation is very worse and everybody is looking for some kind of solutions for the medicines or just for the cure of coronavirus. So definitely we're seeing that there are a couple of companies who are actually coming up with a product like Pfizer and others. So what government has a right? Government has a right to ask them that we are going with a compulsory license because this is a matter of fact of life of the people. So what they can do is they can ask the generic companies to start manufacturing the medicines in parallel to the life of a patent, so that they can actually work on a more better good of human life. So that's a compulsory license in which you are forced to license it to some new vendor so that it can be helpful to the humankind. And carrot licensing. Carrot licensing is something which is mostly done by small startups in regards to the big companies. So what we do is here is that I have an IP with me, and I know that this will improve the overall invention of one of the multi. Let's suppose the Samsung is producing a screens right now, and I know I have a recent updations on the OLED, and it will improve their market. So what I can do is I can give them a carrot. It's a gift can. Okay, this is a carrot from my side. If you add this, you will have a very good market potential. So in that scenario, I'm helping a major company to grow in a future in multifold. That is called carrot licensing. And this is one of the important aspect where you have to pay the money, which is called stick licensing. So so what happens here is if what happened with the Micromax, to be very frank. So they were actually selling the products, and Ericsson got to know that, okay, this is something which is not rightly ethical and they are infringing our IP. So what happened? Micromax was already running on very quick or very small profits at that moment, because already very companies like Redmi or other are trying to come into the market and try to exploit it. So what happened was they got sued. They got sued by Ericsson, and they asked them, okay, this is not possible. Either give us the this amount, this valuation, which is equivalent to how many products you have sold. Okay, and the royalty rate. Let's suppose Micromax has sold like almost 100,000 phones, and at the price of, let's suppose, 1 million each. So 100,000 million was the amount, and Ericsson has a royalty of a 6%. So they will take a 6% of that, and they will ask you have to pay this. So that was the stick licensing in which Ericsson sued Micromax and forced them to pay a licensing fee. So these are some of the aspects to it which I really wanted to discuss with you. And as I have discussed this, several numbers where royalty is being involved. So you can see that these are some of the standards of the royalty. If we talk about the construction, it's 5.6. Automobile is having a slightly you can say lower royalty rate of 3.3, but it depends upon industry to industry. But consumer good is having around 5% off. And this is the royalty rate, and we talk about how the process should be. So first of all, if a licensor is there, how they are going to make money out of it. You're a license, you got an IP, you license it to somebody. That person utilize your IP to launch a product in the market. If you're not going to launch yourself, you can give it to somebody else. They will launch the product in the market. They will get the revenue. They will pay you the royalty. That's a very easy mathematical situation, and that happens most of the time. So it depends upon company to company how they want to go ahead. But this is the standard chain of that is being followed. And coming to my last slide, I will be briefing you on how the things work. The validation of the idea is very important. As I initially mentioned, the idea should be good enough to target the audience. It should be having a good market so that the amount of profits you can achieve is on a higher side. File a patent, as Jatin also mentioned. The most important thing is grant a patent. That has nothing to do with the publication. You can publish like hundreds of patents, but it is not granted, it's of no worth. So that's a very important thing. Then comes the valuation. You need to put a dollar value. Okay, this is a 300 million patent. This is a 400 million patent, or it's $1 million patent. That's something which you have to do. And then comes the market research also, which is a part of valuation, in which you analyze how much product is being sold. Okay, there are 10 products which is being sold in Asia, but there are almost 100 products which has been sold in US. So you multiply the price of a product with 100, and you come up with the overall market, and then you see what is the value. And definitely be strong. Protect your IP. It will be of value to you on a longer picture, and here you can license it up. So that's all from my side. I'm happy to answer any queries from your side. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandeep, for your presentation. I think by your presentation, we are now able to understand the valuation metrics. How the IPRs are there, how you can give them onto the licensing agreement, and how you charge the royalty. Each and everything are now aspects is very clear. My question to Jatin and Sandeep, both of you, is that these products are licensed and everything are more practical on the manufacturing, pharmaceutical innovations. I'm just asking you one question from the participant perspective. The person who's in the fintech, a lot of startup are here, are the fintech area. All chartered accountants are there. So can you just narrate the things simply? A chartered accountant led by startup, a fintech startup is there. They are providing their services in trade finance or any other services. What kind of IPR they should register it? Number one, as you said that patent, whether patent can be registered, I don't think patent for software is registered or not. So you need to answer. I'm going to put narrating one example, and you need to answer. For then after design, what kind of design they have to register in the trade IPR for a trade finance particular. What kind of copyright they should go for it, and definitely trademark name is there. So he will register his name in India. So which country and other country he will get it, and what going to be now the survey will serve us. What benefit will drive a registration of all this, and how he will get the benefit. So a complete set of questions are there for a purpose. So I need answer from Jatin. First.
Dheeraj, it calls for entire going back to the presentation, but yes, I would say so that in a professional practice, when you develop a unique way of delivering of certain services which you are already into, and for that, if you are developing a IT product, right? Say for example, if you create a software which helps you to administrate day-to-day business of your profession, like say chartered accountant, or maybe a law firm, or maybe any other profession you take. Such softwares are, I agree and confirms that it is not patentable, but yes, it can be copyrightable if it is well expressed. Under the copyright, the software are protected, and the flow of the same will be protected under the copyright. Now, any person comes up with such software will definitely have a right, you have a right to restrain them and ask them that what are the flow they are adopting. If it is found similar, then they will be restrained further on the permanent basis. This is one. Now, second, sometime it happens that you come up with some innovative solution. It is not that the idea per se will be patented, But if that solution expressed or narrated or developed in a form of a product or in a form of a process to reach out to certain product, then it can be patented, which is very rare in case of a professional practice. So in ideal way, the trademark and a copyright are the two intellectual property which I see that any chartered accountant firm or any professional firm can acquire and can protect.
Okay, so I think in logo, any design something which you mentioned is any things are there like suppose software is there, any kind of design in logo or something, can he also go for the design?
Right, not a design, but it will be covered under the copyright if it is artistically designed.
Okay.
Design should not be confused by a drawing or an artistic work. Design is something which is attached to a product. When I look into the water bottle, there are certain shapes to the water bottle. When I look into the speaker, when I look into the vehicle, from the distance I am able to gauge that it is a vehicle manufactured by Maruti, vehicle manufactured by Mercedes, vehicle manufactured by Audi. So there are different shapes and configuration that will be designed. But when it comes to an expression, like you draw a picture of Amitabh Bachchan and I draw an Amitabh Bachchan and M.F. Hussain would have drawn the Amitabh Bachchan, the expression would have been different. We all three will be drawing a picture of Amitabh Bachchan with a big smile. But you narrated, the expression which is expressed on the canvas will be copyright. So the way we express our design of logo, that will be copyright. That includes the color schemes and arrangement.
So, something you were mentioning about the valuation and loyalty. So, as a trade finance company and a software company, how they can get benefit with this licensing agreement? So, suppose a Indian company get copyright as mentioned by the Jatin and having a trademark and go for the any other country. So, how are they going to benefit? Can you narrate an example?
Sure. First of all, Jatin said in a very rightly manner that the process can be patented. That's the only aspect that too, if it is linked with the product. Okay, so copyright will be there. Definitely, one of my client who's from South Africa, they have a software at their in-house, and they were actually looking for a valuation so that they can commercialize it. Okay. Normally, what happens is, if we see the brand, the copyright and the trademark, that will come under the brand value. That will not be coming under the valuation of the IP or sorry, to the patents. So what we do is we can analyze how much the market of that particular software or the industry software. Let's say it can be a finance software or Khata books or kind of, and how much market they are capitalizing it and how much market is there in which territory, and that will be directly proportional to the market that your product can be capitalizing in future. So normal the percentage what we do is we take a very conservative percentage of 4 to 5% of the market. Let's Khata book is covering a market of 100 million right now, and they are targeting the overall investment of, you can say, $1 billion. So in that case, if we ask about, okay, I have this particular copyright with me and it is growing at this scale. So what will be the exact value is somewhere around 5 to 7% of it. That is how we come up with the numbers. But definitely for copyright and the trademark, it's more of coming for the brand protection, how big the company is growing. If it's a bigger company, you have been known by the multinational, multi-countries, that becomes increasingly available and increasingly publicly available logos, then comes on a higher ground. But if it is a small startup and it is having a copyright and they are looking to sell that copyright, I won't think it will be of much benefit right away. It's like as I mentioned, it's a mutual fund. You have to have it with you till you are big enough to have some good name. When I say big, it's like having some millions. So at least have a 15, 20 millions. Then you have some value of around a $500,000 there. That's how the general calculation is. But definitely for starters, I will say if you're having a brand protection right now for special or trademark copyright, just secure it and scale it in a multiple territory. So later on when you become big, it becomes easy for you to go in different territories. I think Jatin might also agree. There was a case by the Apple also when they're starting to go in Asian territory and they faced that it is already logo is already being taken by somebody else. And I think Mountain Dew happened this year also with India also. Mountain Dew faced a similar issue. A smaller company had a trademark logo which is a similar name, and now Mountain Dew has to pay a huge amount of money. So it's always good to protect in a multiple countries, seeing in a bigger picture than going currently. Okay, how much the value is?
Which country it should be protected? My question, the earlier was that which country?
Yeah, it depends. It depends upon where you see yourself. Especially if finance sector, if you talk about finance sector, you need to understand which of the countries like Germany is good in finance sector. Your US is doing extremely good in the finance sector. So these are your potential markets. First of all, you need to segregate what are your potential markets where you're going to launch this product. Because now with especially with the finance and fintech coming into the picture, it becomes so easy to launch products in multiple territories. It's just a matter of a day now. Okay, so you need to understand where your revenues are, where the markets are, and you quickly should be fast enough to grab that market with the protection, brand protection. My recommendation is always think 10 years ahead. Think you are already big enough. You're already big enough. You're covering like multiple countries. Think in that manner, protect it up. When I started my venture, mine was patrickconsultant.com, but I taken .com, .in, prc.com, everything. So you have to protect in such a manner for the bigger picture.
Yes, thank you. I think there's a lot of questions there. I request both of you. I'll send it over the mail. A lot of questions are coming, and due to the precaution of time, because we have the next panelist also there. So I'll send it to all the questions, and the participant, don't worry, will address all the questions. I know that a lot of such related queries are there. We'll send it to both the gentlemen, and will answer to the our posting on our websites. So I think thank you, Sardeep ji, thank you, Jatin ji, for excellent, brilliant ideas and thought process and your experience to our participants. So with this, thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us. Have a wonderful day ahead. Take care.
Thank you, Dheeraj ji.
Thank
you all the office bearers, and I really enjoyed thoroughly. Sardeep, it was wonderful presentation, and it is complemented to my presentation. So that's something which was concern of the Dheeraj too. But you have added something what I missed out, but I compliment for that as well. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Be safe.
Yeah, Hansa ji. So, next gentleman, I request my chairman, Hansa Chugji, to take the lead and to welcome all the participants as well as the panelists. So, all the panelists, please switch on your camera.
All panelists are requested to be there on the live.
Yes.
Yeah, I think everyone has joined.
Yes, joined. Everyone is joined.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all. We welcome you all to this last session of this 5-day long startup manthan, which have traveled the journey from the different area, starting with some ecosystem from the government. The starting point was our inaugural by our Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry and Railway, CA Piyush Goyal ji. And now the journey which is going to be closed by you all, Sudipta Gautam ji, Rishi ji, Amitabh ji, and naturally moderator by Anshul ji, to take this last session of the day and the last session of the whole of the event also. Dheeraj ji, really I appreciate the way you have taken this this whole of the program forward, bringing best to our participants. I'm really very grateful and thankful to you and the participants also, with all kind of focused mind. Like naturally, this is a area we all have to focus with, because ecosystem of the Indian startup has really been, though it has traveled a journey of maybe around 4 years. It has brought so many good things in whole of the system. This session will be covering valuation as well as the exit strategy. I welcome you all the panelists and the participants. And now I'll request Dheeraj Bhai to take this session, the last session of the day and the last session of the whole of the program. Also, this manthan on the startup to take it forward. Dheeraj Bhai, over to you. Dheeraj ji.
Yes, thank you, my chairman, for bringing this excellent idea to this institute, a startup week, and covering this particular topic also. All the dear participants, I just wanted again thanks to all of you for being continuing entire 5 days. That's very important, important. Otherwise, I've never seen such a long continuous association of the participant in entire 5 day continuing. And all is not about the same continuing with the 10,000 people numbers. So thank you. I think your appreciation is motivating us to have more such kind of program, and again. We'll surely have more program. This is the last session, and we in the entire last 5 days, 4 days, we had on the various startup, whether it's a cash integral part or corporate governance or how to get raise the money, and different aspects we have covered. Today we have covered the IPR, we have covered the digital marketing, each and every aspects of the startup we have covered. Now the heart of the startup, which I think all the people looked upon it. The chartered accountant are mainly providing a services to the client or a startup, but the chartered accountant led startup, or being a angel investor chartered accountant. So here is a three category. I would say it. We as an experienced chartered accountant also be a led investor, angel investors, and we will have value-added services to the startup, and we himself also running our own company, the startup. So all of we need to understand when to enter and when to exit. In the secondary market, we always have the market strategy or market upsides, portfolio and trending. What price you have to exit. We have the CNBC, Awaz, a lot of G business, all the channels are there. But this is the only channel, ICAI TV, and these panelists are there to give you the idea about when to enter and how to exit. And this is the important aspects. It's been on experience, where their experience will tell us what valuation they has to enter into the startup, and what valuation you have to exit. Or a startup, when your startup is made, when you have to exit. So all of the things are there going to be covered by all panelists, and going to be taken moderation by the council speaker. So coming to the Rishi Aswani ji, he's a managing director, AIF Duff and Health. Hence, being an experienced person in the alternate asset advisory, he is responsible in overseeing portfolio valuations, secondary market advisory in India, having more than 20 years of experience in the consulting and client side. He been number of platform as a speaker on the topic of the valuations, private equity, venture capital resolutions in Lawson. And he also been selected for 40 under 40 award by AIWMI. So with this, I welcome Rishi Aswani ji to the particular ICAI this session. Another is Sudipta Gautam. He's from I think US. He's morning time. He's there. Sudipta Gautam has more than about years of experience in all kind of areas, whether it's technology or FMCG or energy. I think he has served our last 40 years into that area, being IIT himself. IIT. I think he's from Mumbai. I'm not sure what, but IIT is in, as well as the IIM. So both the India's top professional degrees he's having. He's an entrepreneur. He invested in a number of businesses and successfully. Mostly, I can say it's a 3 businesses he invested and exited very successfully. Be part of the number of M&A deals and being part of the managing partner of India Angel Network. So that's the India Angel Network is very famous amongst the whole startup everything. So welcome Sudhita Gautamji to this particular panel. And another is Amitabh Srivastava. So again a power packed panelist over here, part of the till you can say it up till January he was part of the India Angel Network, Indian Angel Network, and he is also part of the fund. Fund is managing partner in the. Now currently he is a July venture. I was going to ask why not August, why not June, so why July partner. So that's also a very interesting name which I liked it, July Ventures. And Amitabh have also had a track record for identifying the right team, right people, right time to invest, right time to exit. And he also exited from last 3 out of 4 in good deals, which he belongs to. And Sudipta and both Amitabh worked together in the number of deals together and exited together successfully. So both giant people are here, and he's also a mechanical engineer from the BGTI. And he involved in a number of R&D. So with this all power pack panel, I welcome all the panelists over here. Now I want to introduce my moderator, Ansul. He's going to take the lead. He's from Gurgaon. He's a chartered accountant, and he set up his own company, a startup bazaar. He's also being partner of the CA firm and helping a lot of startups. And he's scaling from Big Four, worked in the Deloitte, PwC, seen number of all kind of valuation strategies, also advised number of clients. So with this, I welcome the Ansul Singhal to take the lead on particular panel. So before Ansul will take the lead, I request both 3 panelists, Sudipta, Rishi, and Amitabh ji, to have a 2-3 minutes monologue from the topic, from your heart, what you want to address to the participants.
So do you want to go first?
Well, so first is, I think, Amitabh ji.
Well, thank you very much for this invitation. The July name, as you know, in India, it rains in the month of July, and there's a lot of greenery everywhere. We as a fund are rainmakers. So our job is to help these companies come up. And also the domain name July Ventures was available. So we said yes. Well, thank you very much. I think it's a very interesting topic, and valuation for startups, as you know, is a lot different from valuations for mature companies and etc. But clearly, value is something that the founders should focus on. Leave the valuation to the investors, at least in the initial stages. Yeah. That would be my thing. And just I'll say one more thing and I'll hand over to Sudipto. I think valuation for exit at the time of exit is different from the valuation at the time of fundraising. So at the time of fundraising, you might, again, depending on the stage, you could get higher valuation because that's very future looking. At the time of exit, people are going to make money. So at that time, it is possible that there may be a little lower valuation, but it is not a hard and fast rule that sort of governs this. And last thing that I will say, one more thing that I will say is that exit is first for the investor. Yeah. Founders may or may not exit. Yeah, so you have to remember a venture capital has a time frame in which they have to return their money to their investors. They have taken money from their investors and put money over here. So there's a time frame. So always the exit from that perspective would be first for the investors. The founders may or may not exit. With that, I'll end. So,
yeah, over to the Rishi.
Thank you, Dheeraj ji. Also, Hansraj ji, for inviting me on this panel. Happy to be here with the esteemed panelists on this session. I appreciate the opportunity. I think, thank you for my introduction. I think you summed it up appropriately. I've been doing valuation advisory for nearly 2 decades. And this last this decade entirely has been dedicated to the private capital industry. And when I say that, I mean from venture capital in the equity space all the way up to buyout. Also, I do other asset classes like credit and real estate and infra. But this is a very interesting space. I think, just going by what I see from my clients, you can imagine that there tends to be a bit of a startup, there tends to be a bit of a bias because I tend to see companies that get funded. So for me, I kind of get, and my clients are very helpful to kind of share their insights into helping me think about how to value their companies. But for each company that I look at, I'm sure there must be, whatever the ratio you want to pick, you want to pick 100, you want to pick 1,000, that may not have got to that stage yet. And these are interesting situations, right? There are sometimes where founders are extremely, successful bootstrapping these companies, and they're not even ready yet at times to let capital in. On the other hand, you have investors who have very large ambitions and want to change an industry. They want to change their futures. They want to grow rapidly and they want to corner market share. And so they are hungrier for capital and they want to kind of present themselves as a very investable company. So then there's this interesting, process that they go through, and I appreciate your program. I think over all these days, you would have talked about how they can present themselves, find their value add, look at their rights and reach out to advisors. It tends to be a very interesting space where obviously the investor is looking for a certain amount of interest, but not too much interest such that it disincentivizes the founder. So they are looking to get the maximum interest that makes sense for them. And the founder is trying to obviously give away as little interest as possible, but raise the maximum amount of capital. So it is a very interesting space. You find a lot of structured deals in this space. Invariably, preferred equity tends to be a very commonly used form of investments. Rights and preferences are heavily negotiated. Things are put on paper. How it could end up working out in the future depends on how the equation goes. And obviously, look, I think I won't make this very long, but a startup could be talking to an investor for 6 months, 1 year. Things move quickly. So I would imagine that an investment in a startup maybe even happens quicker than an investment that's in a later stage company where the investor has taken years and years and maybe close to a decade to get to know the founder. Right? Things have to go at a rapid pace. So it is an interesting space. A lot of negotiation being done, a lot of things put on paper, a lot of things based on gut feel, right? Not every size of investment is going to be able to afford to do some commercial due diligence, to do an extreme amount of deep dive. So there's a lot of gut feel involved from the investors. And so my job, and so 5 years ago, I think the question was, or maybe 8 years ago in India, the question was, why do I need a valuation advisor? I'm the investor, I set the price. It's cash in and cash out, right? What are you going to add in the middle? And then the question is, it's gone from, well, okay, how are you seeing this for other investors? And can you help me maybe set up a framework? Because I have, my reasons for how I arrived at the value for this business and what I wanted to pay, but I need somebody to create a structure around it, put an actual framework around it. So that's been actually the evolution of what I have seen over the last 10 years. So it's a very interesting space, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to turn it over to Shudipto, and then we can dive into any open topic items.
Thank you first, Dheeraj ji. Thank you for having us here, and same to Hans ji. Extremely good to be here. So as you said, my background is been more of being an entrepreneur in various sectors over a long period of time. And the one thing I do, always think is, value lies in the eye of the beholder. What you value me as, what somebody else values me could be quite different. And today, when Airbnb is going public, there are stories about how even they couldn't raise the first 1.5 million when they went out in the market, right? So as an entrepreneur, one of the things which is very important to realize is that valuation is very different from value creation. That as an entrepreneur, I need to create value. And as Amitabh put it, the valuation many a times depends on which investor you go to. There could be two VCs, two private equity firms valuing you very differently. So it's a combination of art and science. So there is definitely science to it, but there's a lot of art to it. Am I going to the right investor? So again, I would say value and value creation are two different things. Secondly, as an entrepreneur, when you start a business, you never look at, if an entrepreneur comes to me and says, hey, I'm looking at an exit, I would look at him or her with suspicion. You don't start a business to exit. You start a business because you believe in it, you are passionate about it. So, and the value creation all comes as a corollary to it, as something which happens along the way. First is the team, is how what you see is the white space. Am I doing just a Me Too product because the market is huge? Am I addressing a need in the market which is not being addressed right now? So there are lots of aspects to it, but to me, it's again a very interesting space. There is science to it, there are comparatives to it, and as we grow in India today, this asset class, whether it's angel, whether it's VC, is relatively new in India. If we go back 15 or 20 years, huge opportunity today. I compare myself to the time I graduated. When you graduated, you would think, or the better jobs were all in the MNCs, but no more. Today, doing a startup or working even in a startup is great. Being a failed entrepreneur also has value because there's a lot of learning to it, right? So with that, I'll pause, and Dheerajji, Anshul, over to you.
Yes, thank you, the panelists, and thank you, Hansrajji, thank you, Dheerajji, for organizing this particular Startup Manthan 2.0 week. And as we all know, Manthan means what is at the end, what emerges at the end. It's the nectar, it's the Amrit. And probably you have kept the absolutely apt kind of topic for ending this particular 2.0 week with the valuations and exit strategies, because as in the middle of the sessions, Anirudh Damani has said that show me the cash, right? So here's the cash, the valuations and the exits when the investors are making money and the founders are making money. So the context has been set up very rightly and very aptly. And I would have a few questions to ask from the panelist, and in fact, from a very founder's basic perspective. First and foremost question which arises to their mind is that how should they determine their value of the startup? So when they are going for an investor round, then how should they get to know that what is their right value to be asked from an investor? So I would ask Amitabh about how would you, advise someone, or how had you been looking at the valuations of the startups when you founded them?
So both. I've done more investing now than founding companies, etc. Yeah, I've raised money even at the time of funding, but I have more experience to share in the respect of investing in companies. So, like like everyone is saying, and we're all clear that valuation based on discounted cash flow or any of the other methodologies just are thrown out of the winds because there is no history. I mean, there's very little history in the company. The company is probably 3 to 5 years in the making. First 2-3 years probably losing a lot of money, and so it's really hard to value a company. I think one of the ways in which so let me just tell you about the things that go into the consideration for evaluation. There's of course the team, as Sudipto mentioned. I think you will also look at the traction that the company has obtained. You will look for intellectual property, the commercialization potential of the intellectual property that is being created. I think you look at if you have this traction or a KPI that you're tracking, then how is that projected in the future? So if I'm going to value the company based on the KPI or the key performance indicator of the company, and there is a projection of that, I look at my earning potential. Then I will discount it to say, okay, it's likely that this may or may not meet. What I'll do is from that, I will subtract the risks. Yeah. And clearly, at times, if you are in a market where investors are chasing you, rather than you chasing the investors, now the valuation has an impact on that. So a lot of investors sort of rush in to say, this is a fantastic team, they're second-time founders or whatever, and we want to. So valuation would be a combination of all of this. Yeah, and yeah, the decision to invest or not. So there is the valuation consideration. This is the decision to invest or not will depend on this, and also on, I guess, the terms and conditions. Am I going to get a board seat? Am I going to, what are the things that I'm going to control? A, on my management rights, and B, on my economic rights. So those are the things that you would consider. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, definitely. But I would also like to hear from Sudipta, because he has also founded a few companies and has made successful exits. So what were his thoughts at point of getting the first investors in when he founded the company? So Sudipta, your views?
Thanks, Anshul. So, with whatever, I would just like to add what Amitabh said. But there is a market condition also. If I go back to 20 years ago in Silicon Valley, the standard was, it was a standard, it was like a cookie cutter that when you started a company, you got a $5 million valuation and you raised $1 million for 20% equity, right? So it was, and it was, there are several startups who went through that phase, right? On the other hand, if I was to look at when you start up, how do you value yourself? You are, again, addressing a specific market need, and you say, hey, and I was listening to the last session also, that 5 years, 10 years from now, this is what the market is going to be. Let's say it's going to be $1 billion market or $10 billion market. I will get probably 5% share of it. So my revenue will be $50 million, right? And therefore, in this market, there will be a so and so EBITDA. I will look at comparables, right? And based on that, I will suggest a value. Now, which side? Am I on the buy side? Am I on the sell? If I'm the promoter, if I'm the entrepreneur, I will come to a certain. But as an investor, I would look at it very differently. And what Amitabh talked about is I would do sensitivity analysis. Is the team capable of delivering it? So there will be a lot of those questions which will go up. Now, if I'm going for hard assets, now these are all intellectual property related. If I'm looking at hard assets, because we are looking at some investments which are purely based on hard assets, then I would look at what would this venture throw out as free cash flow over the next 4 or 5 years. Then I would do it, based on that, I would do a discounted cash flow, and I would do a multiple based on which I would do valuation. So those are pretty much the areas where I have done when we raised money. That's how we had done it.
Great. So following up on that, probably as you mentioned, that discounted cash flow is one of the mechanisms which is generally followed, and we have also seen it followed very much. So I would ask Rishi, who is a valuation expert. So Rishi, what would be your take on kind of startups which are in the pre-revenue stage and which are having deep tech, and platforms with them, or having some research patent with them, but which has not yet been tested in the market? So how do you value them? Means what kind of valuation mechanisms or methodologies do you apply for valuation of these kind of startups?
Sure. Thanks, Anshul. So, look, I think it's interesting the example that you've kind of brought up. Going back to both maybe Amitabh and Shilpa's points, I think a lot of this value is future value, correct? So you're really backing a management team or backing a certain set of assets, whether it's intellectual property or whether it's a hard asset. Now, when you're investing in a pre-revenue stage company, you have to look at a lot of aspects to give you confidence that they'll be able to deliver, right? It's really, I think a lot of these companies get funded when the management team actually has the prior track record, right? You would find it much more rare to find a pre-revenue company that's been backed by third-party capital that has, little experience in the space, correct? Because there's a lot of companies out there vying for capital. So, I like to kind of say, okay, look, let's take a step back, right? There are a couple of primary valuation methodologies. We're touching upon all of them in our conversation. There is a future expected cash flow, which one of the forms is discounted cash flow. There is benchmarking / relative valuation, which you can call a market approach or a comparable company approach. And then there is a cost approach, which is basically, if you were just stick the balance sheet and fair value everything today, maybe the hard assets more with the value be, right? Given that you're investing for future value, sometimes the assets may form like a floor value, but essentially you're going to create some kind of outlook based on benchmarking as well as expectations. And that's what you will probably be presenting to the investors. And the investors will obviously test you on all of those things. Again, if you've got an advisor who can help you put that together, that adds a lot more credibility. But if you're doing it yourself, then you better be a plus category management team who has credibility and that the investors can believe that you're going to be able to deliver on these aspects. Now, again, to answer the question, how does a pre-revenue company get a valuation? Well, it's based on a future metric, whether that's at the exit or whether that's at the next round, whether that's after some particular milestones in order to reach that next round. We do understand that a lot of early stage investors are really investing for that set of milestones, for that next round. And in a way, I appreciate the discussion on how the kind of industries develop. Is you're also almost taking a call on what the investing landscape will be, because a lot of people in 2018 were already talking about, okay, it's been 8 years, there's been no downturn, maybe we will see it. And suddenly, after like 5-6 years, I started seeing a downside case being built into every investment committee memorandum. So, you will also have to start thinking about what will the funding conditions be. You can't take that for granted all the time, though, of course, we've had an amazing trajectory here for the last 15 years. So anyways, long-winded answer, but I think you have to look at what the expectation is out in the future. If you're bootstrapped and you're looking for data points and you're reading the news and you're an avid consumer of the news, you can find companies perhaps that have done something similar to what you've done. And you will then have to triangulate and make a convincing argument, right? I think for 50 to 100 rupees, you can download a report from Venture Intelligence from the ROC, and you can just get old financial metrics and try to come up with multiples of your own, right? So there's a lot of structuring that goes into that. There are a lot of pitfalls. This is a very subjective space. I think Sudhakar stole my thunder, because for 20 years in the valuation space, we always call it a combination of an art and science. And at the early stage, it is tremendously an art, correct? I mean, it's like Amitabh said, right? You can't just enter in with a single scenario set of DCF saying this is what it is going to look like. A 3-month delay in your funding itself will change the whole outcome and change the required rate of return, everything that the investor makes, right? So you have to have flexibility. I like Shilto's point also on sensitivities. We find the best of investors and the best of founders create a few scenarios, because who knows how the future could pan out. You could have a base case, you could have an upside case, and you could have a stress case, right? And you can create as many as you want. You can create as many as you want. And sometimes an investor may think very binary about their investment because they're coming in so early. It's either success or failure, right? So now when you talk about deep tech, and I'll let my participants speak to it because they're willing buyers, willing sellers. I'm an advisor. But what I will say is deep tech is obviously looking at a particular industry that it is looking to transform digitally. So you're sitting back and thinking, okay, which industry is ready and ripe for that transformation? And do I have the team? And why do I want to do it? I think it was pointed out earlier also. I think, a founder, I think Amita was saying about the exit for the fund versus the founder. Founders usually have that one burning desire to create a company that they are passionate about and stay involved for their life. And that's, I think, really liked by at least all the investors that I see. You don't want to see a founder leave. I think it's amazing when you see a founder find a niche for themselves in their own business. I'm going to give you a very, very poor analogy, but even take Bill Gates stepping aside as CEO and becoming, taking a separate role in Microsoft. If you understand your key strengths or where you are and understand that you will not be that focal person, you don't have to exit, right? So you should really have a desire and a focus as to what industry that you will transform. And now in deep tech, I think the examples get a little more fuzzy. Anyways, I've given you enough color on how to think about pre-revenue stage. I'll maybe ask our co-panelists.
Yeah, so
Can I just add something to what Rishi said?
Sure, definitely.
We as investors are not wary of advisors. We, in fact, many a times prefer that if it's a good company, because what advisors do is bring a level of sanity. Okay, they'll do a lot of analytics, data, etc. They let the negotiation happen between the investors and the founder, but they bring in a lot of sanity because they bring in a lot of industry data. Yeah, so it helps the process. So we don't look at it in any negative way. Of course, if it's a very, very early stage, then you don't really need a advisor. But if you say pre-Series A or you're raising your Series A, then I think it is best to have somebody who gives you proper advice. It may be from within or maybe externally.
So I would just like to add here, we talked about pre-revenue, and I'm personally also, involved in a lot of biotech. We all know that it will be pre-revenue now. It's pre-revenue now. And probably by the time, because we are not huge funds, by the time we exit, it will still be pre-revenue. Because if you look at, if you look at somebody who's developing a therapeutic, right? They will go through milestones. And when you come to you'll come to preclinical, you'll come to clinical phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. By the time they get into revenue, it will be after phase 3. Typically, after phase 2, a large pharma company or somebody like that would acquire them, right? So you as an angel or a VC would actually exit by that time. So you will never see revenues in your lifetime, at the lifetime of the fund. So the valuation and by that time, it's not they will just raise money once, they will raise 3, they would have raised C, D series. So they would have gone all through the milestones. So what are the patents they apply for? What are the patents they get? Which markets? So there's a whole, caboose of things which will come in at various stages of valuation. So.
Right. So that great thoughts there. So one follow-up thing which comes to my mind is that we are assigning a lot of value to the management team which is going there, founding the startup. So is there a mechanism to assign a value to a valuation management team, or is it something which is just left on the gut feel of the investors? Sudipta, what's your view?
Very interesting. I think as investors, we bet on the management team. It's purely a bet on the management team. And I think all of us who've been in this business, and I have various examples, is you bet on the business plan with the management team. But if you bet on the management team, even if the business plan doesn't fructify, they will pivot to something else and they will make you money. So, how, and when I say the management team, it's how long have they known each other? Because anybody, and it's not about a startup, all of us who have been in business know that a team will have differences, right? How do they adapt to those differences? How do they, how do they mesh with each other? For example, we are looking at, and we've looked at a very deep tech company today, right? Or we are looking at. And what the guy who started this company, who had this whole tech idea, brilliant tech guy, but he realizes that he's not the CEO, he's not going to, he has the tech, he's the CTO. So he has the foresight to bring in a CEO. And what we liked about him when he made the presentation to us, he reports to the CEO. He's the founder, he has more stake, but he reports to the CEO. And when we see the interaction between the CEO and the CTO, how they hand off things to each other, how they complement each other, that's a great story to see. So management team is key. To me, without the team, even the idea is brilliant. At least, I'm talking personally, I wouldn't fund that. I wouldn't fund that venture.
Right. So moving on to some other issues on a startup valuation, there are a lot of talks about, and we keep on hearing the terms like cap table and pre-money valuation, post-money valuation. So Amitabh, would you like to throw some light on these concepts, and how do you see as an investor, what are the kind of relevance you put it to these things?
Sure. Do I have the rights to share the screen? I have just 45 seconds. I'll cover 3 slides there.
Yeah, I think Dheerajji, would you allow Amitabh to share the screen?
Yes, of course. Why not?
Sure, please. Thank you.
Just bear with me for a second. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen? Sorry.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So you talked about pre-money valuation, right? That was the question.
Yes, the cap table, the pre-money valuation, and the post-money valuation.
Okay. So, let's get our fundas right here. So if an angel decides to invest 250K and is negotiating for a price of 25% stake in the company, it basically means that the pre-money must be 750 so that post-money is 1 million. Is that okay, Anshul? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So
basically, what you're saying is that the investor should look at the post-money valuation for the shares which they are negotiating for, correct?
No, you always look at pre-money. You always look at pre-money because the moment you put in the money, so let's say you are the only investor, yeah? And if you are putting in 250K here, if you can see my arrow, yeah? Then essentially what you're doing is, to me, investing is all about 8, 9, and 10 standard mathematics. So you say 25% for 250K, therefore 100% is how much? Which is
so that's what I'm saying. So I'm moving one step ahead, that if I have to take 25%, then I'll see what will be the post-money valuation. Say, for example, is it going to be under 1000K, right? So 1000K and I want to take 25%, then this is the percentage, this is the kind of money which I need to put in. Am I putting it rightly?
So what happens is, at the time when you're going to value the company, you're going to look at the traction of the company and put a market multiple on that to say you're worth so much. Traction could be revenue, traction could be number of daily active users, traction could be, inventory days, traction could be your loan book. If you're a lending company, your loan book could be your traction, right? So you base the thing on the market multiple. You're essentially negotiating the pre-money with the person. Then you say, okay, how much money does the company need? Yeah. And you will look at their business.
Right.
Do they really need? Do they really need so much money? So once you've decided that, yes, the company needs so much money, then you sit down to say, okay, what's the pre-money valuation? Yeah. And you can arrive at the other way around to say, look, I am putting in 250K and I think I'm going to take 25% stake. Yeah. Because I have an expectation of my future valuation. Okay. The other thing we talked about was, so when you're running a company, you're running the company for a long time. Yeah, you're not creating it for 3 days or 3 years or 5 years or whatever. So you always look at, when you're driving a car, you look at the gauge to see how fast you're driving, how much gas is left, etc., etc. Similarly, you look at a company. What you look in the company could be your monthly revenue run rate. It could be, your growth on quarter. It could be, unit economics. It could be the loan book. If you are a Flipkart, you could be looking at your GMV. If you are a company which has no revenues, but you are a marketplace, then you could be looking at frequency of transaction, etc., etc. So you track different kind of KPIs. And what you do is you look at, take this example. Today, somebody comes to me to say, I have 1.2 crore ARR. I'm asking you for 3.5 crores. Yeah. And I'm going to take 25% equity. You can see my arrow? Just nod your head, Anshul.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
25%. We can see your arrow.
Awesome. So if I'm raising 3.5 crores and I'm asking for 25%, that means my pre-money should be 10.5 mathematically. Yeah. So if 10.5 is the pre-money valuation and the company is doing an ARR of 1.2, that means they are asking for a multiple on 1.2 of 8.75. So when you multiply 8.75 to 1.2, you get 10.5. Yeah. Now, if that's the case, then I want to know what is the company, what are the other companies in the market? What is competition one getting in the market? And I will arrive at their market multiples. And I'll say, if the industry is getting a market multiple of 4.29 for the kind of business you are, then why are you asking me for 8.75? Yeah. So then the guy will give you a story. He'll say, sir, look at the future. In 1.5 years, my I was 12 lakhs 1 year ago. Today I'm 1.2 crores. And in 18 months, I'm going to be 12 crores. Now, so he says, look at the future potential and value me. I will just add one more thing over here, that I don't have proper statistics, but I have a gut feeling. But I'm going to give you some numbers just to give you a feel. 90% of the companies are off by 70% of their projections when they come to you the first time.
Correct.
Okay. So in which case, if I'm going to apply the market multiple of 4.29 on a future valuation, I will have to do some discounting. Yeah. And I will look at my IRR. I will look at my projected IRR. This is the homework that I may not do, my colleagues will do, and will come back and say, why do you like the founder so much? What's the big deal? I mean, there's only a likelihood of the person doing 6 crores and not 12 crores, in which case our IRR is 23, projected IRR is 23, assuming that there is no COVID in the market in future, assuming all of those things. So, at the fund level, I don't look at this 23. At the fund level, I'm making 20 investments. Yeah. 10 of those are going to fail. So if I'm going to get just 23% from one company, then how do I do the planning? So I got to make sure that the team is capable of delivering at least 30% discount, which means I should get 72%. Yeah. And your last question was on cap table. So cap table, basically, when you're starting a company, you invest some money, you take some equity. Yeah, here you are investing money, here you're taking equity. As you progress, you put in, say, 30 lakhs and you negotiate 30%. Others dilute. So you keep on diluting. The founders are getting diluted. Yeah. If at angel stage, they are less than 50%, then the company is owned by investors and not by the founders. And that's a very big challenge, because I'll be concerned about the next round of raise in this one. Okay. So whatever stage that I'm seeking an investment, whatever equity that I'm giving away, I will compare that to the market multiples and see whether at this traction, are they likely to attract revenue? And that's the importance of projected capture table value. You should, in this particular example, this person should not have given away 30% of the company at pre-angel stage. That was the big mistake. That's the importance of cap table in a valuation. I'll stop here.
I think these are great thoughts. I think the founders who are listening to this particular webinar would appreciate that how important it is to preserve their, in fact, even a small percentage of even 0.5% of their shareholding at the initial stages, because that is worth many, many crores at a later point of time. Am I right?
Just to add, if any of these guys are interested in these slides, they are available from my LinkedIn site. You can just, it's a free thing. I've shared this entire thing from my LinkedIn.
Definitely. It's so nice of you. So I think
all these, your entire presentation are there on LinkedIn.
I have given my entire presentation. It's pinned to the, if you go to my first page, you'll see it's pinned to the first tab. You can just download it from there. You can open it, download it from, or otherwise I'll send it to you. You can distribute it to others.
Great. So as we are hearing that there are a lot of nitty gritties of making a valuation. So I'll pitch in Rishi here, and I'll ask him that there are different sectors, and as Amitabh had shared this slide, the GMV is one of these criteria. Then there are number of transactions, the revenues, the monthly revenues, and so what kind of different technologies means? Is there a different technology or different methodology which you use to value different kind of sectors? Or is it ultimately ends up at discounted cash flows only, whatever kind of sector you are valuing? So your thoughts, Rishi?
That's a good question. I think the way you framed it is interesting. I mean, regardless of which sector you're in, the methodologies to value are, a limited amount and very legacy. We still have three primary families, right? The discounted cash flow, which is basically expected cash flows and the timing and what discount rate you attribute to it, or what you think you can get as an exit value once certain milestones are based. So then you have an IRR, right? So it's a discounted cash flow. Then you have your market approach, which is benchmarking to other companies, and we usually have to adjust for characteristics of the subject company compared to what we think the other companies are commanding, whether it's in size, whether it's stability, whether it's growth, whether it's if they're getting to margins, how quickly did they get there. Now we're in an early stage. We're assuming we're an early stage startup, so I'm going to assume it's a negative cash flow company, right? So they have two primary families. You also have the cost approach, but usually for a going concern, you're not looking at that cost approach unless you're looking to kind of put a floor to what you think you can realize if things go south, right? So yes, we do find, if you were to think about it, different industries, I think exactly as Amitabh said, different industries would have different metrics and rules of thumb that you would track, because there's a lot of noise in the data also, right? You want to boil down to a specific few factors which are more relevant to that industry, and definitely you can't use, if I'm telling you, if you're valuing a SaaS business and I tell you to start using last 12 months revenue, it's just going to look very weird, right? And or should we, as the example I would have here, right? Can we look at ARR as an example, right? Taking the last month and actually annualizing that, because they're in such high growth mode, right? Also, what is the conversion from when you actually book revenue to actually when you record revenues? There's a lot of things to actually think about it. So different industries will have different metrics that can be used to complement a cash flow analysis. Now, not every, here's the interesting aspect, right? These can lead to pitfalls, right? We had people looking at eyeballs in the 2000 tech boom bust, right? A lot of things were valued based on eyeballs. We've had an evolution to, gross merchandise value. We've had an evolution from there to saying, okay, no, something went wrong with one or two of these large players. Let's look at revenue. And then even with revenue, there have been companies that have grown top line, but sometimes have bought revenue through whatever was funded, and they're not improving the unit economics. So now the focus is on unit economics. So depending on the stage, think of these metrics as a bit of a crutch to provide help to kind of use an easy metric to kind of eyeball and talk about how you're performing versus maybe some of the competition. But as you mature, it'll start getting into more of a cash flow discussion. And then that cash flow, I think similar to the comment that Nilesh said, which is, it does not need to be, in his example, you may not hit the revenue stage. But what I'm saying is you may not necessarily hit profitability. And you've seen so many companies go public overseas, that especially overseas, that have not yet hit profitability. So, the best way, I'll just add one more thing. The best way that you can help yourself using these, different valuation approaches, if you're in the fortunate position that you're looking at a company that has been invested in before, you can track progress from that investment date to yours. And you can look at both financial and non-financial indicators. So I think we spoke a lot about management team. Well, the question is, how has the management team evolved since you've put money, since the company raised money last? Have they done what they said they would do? I mean, I've spoken to a bunch of investors who sometimes kind of self-deprecatingly say, actually we're a bit of a glorified HR shop because, I'm not telling the smart people what to do. I'm bringing the smart people in and they know what to do. But it's our job to get those in, right? So how has the company scaled up its management team? Very important metric, right? How is it performing financially or on operating metrics, which is what your question relates to, right? That's one indication. How is the company managing cash burn? If you're assuming you're losing cash, you're burning money, right? What is your cash runway? And when do you need to raise money next? And what is that? And how far out is that? Have you started working towards the next round of funding? What is the funding environment? Because you may have the best business there is, but if the funding environment is not conducive, you're going to suffer because raising money will be challenging. If you're in a COVID environment and everything is going up and down, well, maybe you don't want to dilute and people are raising venture debt. Or you're trying to figure out other ways to bootstrap that money, right? All these factors. Then have there been any regulatory risks that have come in that are new from what was underwritten? So look, if you have a prior transaction, it is great to then use that to kind of calibrate all these data points and arrive at a valuation on the next round. I can't sit here and tell you, okay, 150% growth in that ARR means I take a factor of 0.25% or 0.5% and I increase the last round valuation, right? It is very industry specific. It's also a bit of, we've heard the comment on this session about beauty being in the eye of the beholder. I think how competitive that process is, how many investors get to the table, I think is very interesting. Different investors will have a different value creation plan for you. And you basically trying to get a hold of, would this be valuable to an investor? And basically trying to arrive at a range. I think that is the right way to think of it, right? I think this is myth that, there's this one value that is the right value. I think that's a myth, right? There is a range. And I'm sure maybe, I don't want to create something controversial, but I think if Amitabh or Shrudit are looking at the same investment, we may have a range, right? We may have a range. So a market participant, thinks of it in a range. And that's what I think we need to start thinking about.
Right. So you have made very valid points. Yeah.
Sorry, Anshul.
Go ahead, Amitabh. Go ahead.
Point that, as mature investors, you don't want to, squeeze the arm of the founder, because again, it goes back to the cap table. If you dilute him too much by valuing the person down, then the next round gets impacted. You have to always think about the next round. So it's very important. Thank you for bringing that up, Rishi.
Right. So as I'm hearing that, means it has been said many times that it is not an exact science. It's a combination of art and science. So probably there is definitely going to be some variance in the valuations, what the founder thinks the right value is and what the investors thinks. So means what is your experience? How do you reconcile these values? So Amitabh, do you want to share your views?
Which values? The range of values you're saying?
Yeah. So the range of values means how do you arrive at a particular value of investment?
Okay,
and do you take help of advisors like Rishi in sorting out the valuation gaps?
Okay, that's a very. We would. It depends on the transaction. Frankly speaking, yeah. I may also need the help of, like Sudipta was talking about the biotech company. I may go back to some experts to say what's the commercialization potential of this drug which is being discovered over here.
Right.
In order to arrive at a valuation for that, because intellectual property patents, frankly, I don't care about them. What's the commercialization potential of that patent is more important to me than the fact that you've written a piece of paper in which there is some text. It doesn't impress me a whole lot. Just go back to your question, please.
So I was asking that there is definitely a valuation gap between what the founders think is the right value for them and what the investor think is the right value. So how these valuation gaps are reconciled, and what is the kind of role which professional valuation experts play in reconciling these values? What is your experience in this?
Like I said, it's very, very difficult for an early stage to have, all of us are saying the same thing, that is very difficult to put an expert. You take their input, what are you desiring? So you ask the founder, what are you looking at as a pre-money? Yeah. In my first meeting, I usually don't talk about valuation. In first meeting, I'm just trying to make sure that the team is right, the market size is large, the product is good, there's a product market fit, the traction is decent, yeah, and the exit potentials are high. Yeah, so once I've made that assessment, then I basically want to sit down with them and tell them that, look, I think the number that you're quoting is not in line with the market multiples that I'm seeing with other VC investors. Here's a report from Traction, here's a report from so many other things, and give me a rationale. And it depends on the way the person answers the question. I don't want to dilute the person so much that it demotivates the person. Yeah, we don't want to make it into a investor-owned company. I've been involved with a company that I don't want to name, where the founders, after dilution, they diluted almost 55%, they decided to run away. Yeah, they were not from this country. They ran away. Guess where the notices were coming? To the investors.
Oh.
So you want to make, because I'm a director also.
You are taking a board seat.
Even though I'm not in the management, the questions are coming to me and I'm having to chase the guy. So I want to make sure that the guy is sufficiently motivated to own, say, 76%, or at the least, at an angel stage, I would say over 60%, they must own. Yeah. So that is my objective. And I'm not looking at, counting to say, okay, let me squeeze the guy more. I'm looking at the potential. I'm looking at the team market and all of that. After that, it's a number that we arrive at in a friendly basis, because this is a marriage for the next 5 to 7 years, which is the average length of investing by a VC. Okay, so this is the marriage. You don't want to really piss off your spouse. Getting into
right. So you talked about.
So it's not about the range. We'll look at the range, yeah, but then we'll talk and we'll arrive at a man.
Yeah, but you mentioned about marriage, but this marriage is something which comes with an end date, right? So, and I would like to ask, whether this end date is decided at the time of investment. Means, do you write something in the term sheet while signing the investment?
Okay, so first of all, this industry is a very small one. Very, very small one, particularly on the investor side. There are only a few thousand GPs out there, maybe less than 1,000 GPs in India, maybe a few hundred. Yeah. So nobody wants to take pangas with another person, including a founder. Yeah. The founder may be successful, may come back to you in future. So while you are saying that the marriage is fails because this guy may come back to me for the next business that he may be looking at. Now, the exit, I wrote this down somewhere. I think exits, however, it's not necessary that I take the call only based on that. There will be other things, because, Facebook, when it tries to raise his money, where was the exit thought of? Yeah, nobody thought about, so you can have an IPO, you can raise the next round of funding, you might get an exit, but it's very hard to sort of predict that upfront. So I would say you take the call on the exit to the investors, because what does an investor get when he puts the money, when he or she puts the money into a company? What do they get? They get a demat certificate which says that you own so many shares. You don't get right of first charge on the assets in the company or any of those, although shareholders agreement can change all of that. All I'm saying is that there is really very little value, especially in the tech startups today, in terms of hard saleable assets. So the call on the exit is for the investors, and the fund duration of the VC could play an important role. So we don't want to make, they are usually a 8 to 10 year fund. Most VCs in India are 8 to 10 year funds. So if you take the investment in the very first year, there's a lot of runway. So the pressure on exit is not there. Also, mature VCs who are going to create the next round, the next fund after the first one, the way they look at this is very different from the person who's looking at a single fund of 8 years. End of the story. Because, you can't roll over this to the next fund.
Right. You have to pay the investors at the end of this fund.
You have to pay the investors at the end of the fund.
Right.
I watched two things. I watched the IRR. IRR is in the future. I watched the NAV. So I look at the net asset value. Is this going to enhance my, how soon will I be able to raise the next round so that my NAV improves?
Right. So you have put in the value, you have put in the perspective of VCs. So I'll bring in Sudipta here because he looks after angel investors. Means he is dealing in angel investment, right?
I do both.
Actually, you do both. Well, great.
The fun.
So
one of the things, Anshul, is because you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are watching this probably, is it's very important, I think, for the entrepreneur is which fund he's going for. Because there is sometimes I feel a kind of a shotgun approach. I'll send my proposal to 20 funds and see which sticks. Whereas if they know what kind of money they are looking for, what is, they are looking for what time frame, what Amitabh just now talked about also, is many a times I will get, IN fund today, our sweet spot is probably in the $1 million to $2 million range for, a pre-series or A series, correct? So we get a lot of proposals which are raising $20 million, $30 million. I'm not even going to look at them. And for them to sending it to us, and many a times they will know somebody and they will come to us, I'll probably have a chat with them. So they need to know why they are putting their proposal or their venture to which fund. Very important. What is the life of the fund? Will they be able to give a return? Because one of my criteria for investing also, they may raise the next series, but I can get out as an investor. I can get out if somebody buys me out, if there's a secondary, or if there's an IPO. Right? Those are the three, possibilities.
Correct.
So if I have to get, and my fund, as I said, is 8 years. So if I'm on the third year of my fund, I have 5 years. Right? So in 5 years, I will need an exit. And if I have another fund, I could roll it over to another fund. But at this stage, I don't know. So I think a lot of the entrepreneurs, if they do some homework in that, when they are approaching funds, they will actually spend more quality time in a more focused way. So as they are focused in their business, money raising is also, they need to do some homework and not just, oh, there are 20 VCs or 20 angel funds, I'll send, I'll go out to each of them. Which are the funds? So if I'm a consumer tech, I know that these are the funds which invest in consumer tech, right? So I think a lot of homework in who I raise money from, like we are choosing the entrepreneurs, the good entrepreneurs also choose us. So it's very important to understand it's a two-way street, and for the entrepreneur, his or her best outcome is that they get into a bidding war. Me as an investor, I wouldn't want it, but for them, the best is if they are talking to 2 or 3 funds, they can actually dictate valuation. And if their business proposal is good, they can actually dictate valuation. And, as any investor, we have lost deals because either we were negotiating and somebody else came and took that deal away at that valuation, right? So there again, this is again, I'm coming back to all of us said it's not a precise, there's nothing precise about this. It is, and also, do I like the entrepreneur? Many a times we have also, we put out, we expose you or the entrepreneur to our network, to the people associated, our IC members who can mentor you. So there's a lot of value when you pick up money, right? It's not, you can pick up $1 million or a couple of $1 million or a few crores from anybody, right? But what is that you're getting? What is the intangible you're getting from the investor also, which is extremely important. I'll stop there.
Right. Great insights. I think that is something which is very insightful, that the startup founders should also, choose their investors. Ultimately, otherwise, as a layman, as a young founder, everybody says that somebody should put in money. I don't bother who is going to put in money into my startup. I should get some fund so that I can run my business. So I think you have raised a very valid point that startup founders should be, more careful and more cautious in choosing their right investors. That's a very valid point, very very important point. So, Sudipta, following up on this means we are talking now about the exit strategies and what are the timelines as to how you should gauge about for exiting a startup. Somewhere the investor needs to get out and need to take an exit. So how do you want to take that exit? Means it is something which the existing VC or the angel investors help the founders to make an exit, find some suitable second stage of investors to buy you out, and what kind of valuations at that point of time you look at? How do you look at those valuations?
So once again, yeah, of course, we definitely need to exit, because you want to show your investors, your LPs, you have to give a certain return, or you strive to give a certain return. So as the fund comes to a close, you are obviously under pressure to exit. So hopefully you will start the exit process much earlier. Now that's, again, it's a balance between, if today I'm getting a 5 times multiple and my fund is going for another 2 years, and the business traction is good, should I wait for a 10 time or a 50 time exit because I think this is a great value, right? Or should I take my money right now and return to my LPs? That many a times becomes an investment committee decision. You'll have to, and there are various views. How the business is doing is extremely important. How the market is valuing such business becomes a factor, right? And are these guys, are the entrepreneurs or the team, are they capable of taking it to the next level? Because many of us who have run businesses know, I could be a very good team to take it from 0 to 10 million to 50 million. But at 50 million, something else has to happen. We know this entrepreneur or this team, they have been very good. But beyond that, they need to be bought by a larger company. If we make that evaluation, then we know they have to exit. They are not the team which will take it from 50 million to 500 million, right? And that's when you say, hey, you got to exit. And you encourage the founders to find you help them find a strategic buyer. Now, again, when you are exiting, if you are exiting to a PE fund, because that's probably who will come in, yeah, you will get a certain value. A strategic usually pays you higher value. So again, do you invest to another fund? Do you invest to a strategic investor? So those are things, and that's how, when I said, a few minutes ago, that's where the quality of your investor matters, because the investor who you have, if they have the network, if they have they are connected to other funds, they are connected. Many a times you won't find the exit in a domestic fund. You probably have to, get your network outside. Again, I come back to my biotech example, that in a biotech company, the value, India hasn't paid a lot of value to biotech. So you have to look at PE funds outside the country. So those are the factors as an investor I would look at, even when I raise my next round, is, do I need investors? So one of the things we look at as a fund is, we know this business is going to take serious amount of money. So when we invest, we want to have a co-investor in the cap table who can actually take this company forward. We know we cannot invest probably in the next round. We'll probably invest only another $1 million, but this business is going to need $10 or $20 million. Do we have somebody in the cap table who will take this business? Do we have visibility to who could invest in the next round? And at that point of time, we could come out as a secondary. We could actually sell the business to, completely get it out of our stake. So those are the factors we look at from an exit point of view.
Right. So I'll also like to have some views of Amitabh on exit timing. Means sure. How do you look at the timing of an exit? Means, as Sudipta said, that there can be you can be getting a valuation of $5 million 5 times, but there is a potential of going to 50 times. But then how do you, reconcile the exit of the fund, of the investors, of your LPs and everything? So your views.
So it's very difficult to exactly correctly pinpoint the time when you can exit, because a lot depends on how well the company has performed. So if you look at this, go back to this table that I had shown earlier. If you are, So if you are, tracking ARR, suppose you are not tracking ARR and you are tracking, let us say, daily active users. So you will get information about daily active users. So let's say this company was doing 1,200 daily active users. Now they've come up to 12,000 daily active users, and they are projecting 1.2 million or 2 million daily active users. Yeah. So the valuation, we all recall, is a multiple of the KPI that you're tracking. If the KPI is ARR, then you multiply the multiple to that. So we have been with ICAI for a long time. It's a great institution, and they've set the trend. In fact, a lot of my learnings have come to me from ICAI. So in July Ventures, what we are doing is we call ourselves as rainmakers. So if you go to our website, it says we are rainmakers. Our job is to make sure that the KPI that is being tracked and which is being projected is reached. Yeah. Now, whether and all the things that Sudipto said are completely, absolutely bang on. In our team, we have a guy who is basically a hardcore techie. Yeah. We have a guy who's a guru in sales, B2B, B2C, all of those sales. We have a guy who's a CFO. He's been CFO of a large company and has done many transactions. And there are two of us who are there are basically more strategic. So our job is to make sure that in an early stage company where the tech is bad, but the businessman is good, or the other way around, that the tech is great, but there's no CEO like Sudipto was talking about. So our job is in the first 6 months of the investments. As an angel investor, I have always felt that if you engage with the founders on a daily basis for the first 3 months, you only enhance the opportunity to exit. Now, how do you exit? You exit only when you focus on the key performance indicators of the company. Obviously, you got to take care of HR. You have to help them recruitment. You got to help them with better platform that you can recommend to them, better CRM, your Rolodex. You pull out your Rolodex and you help them increase the sales and so on and so forth. So to enhance the chances of an exit is all that you can do. So you focus on the traction, like I said. First decide what are the KPIs you're tracking and focus on those traction. Hire the right kind of people to enhance that. You get involved, etc., etc.
Right. So you made some very valid points that investment is not just putting in money and then forgetting about it. The investors have to be engaged with the founders. It's not just that put in money and it will give you returns. So very valid points made. So yeah.
I just had a few points here. I think there's been great points that have been raised by both my co-speakers, co-panelists. Look, I think when we see investors' investment cases, they also include the exit thesis. Now, at a very early stage, it is a little more challenging, but I think it's been spoken about on this panel. This industry has really evolved. I think just the way Amitabh described his relationship with IAN, there are investors with a sweet spot, and sometimes there's an overlap also to the next size or the next level of company development where they will kind of interact. And every investor, you'd be interested to know this. I mean, even if you think of the very large end of the scale, right? Somebody is thinking of going to IPO, that's one thing. But if they're thinking of a strategic sale, which is even at thousands of crores level, they are thinking, if I exit, will I be exiting at a price at which the next investor can make money? Because otherwise, why would I get an exit, right? So it can evolve rapidly in 5 to 7 years or 8 to 10 years. And I think has been pointed out, not every early startup investment is going to go. 30% is what I'm going to derive from what I heard from this conversation. 30% may go on plan. And you will have some multi-baggers, some that will go sideways, some that will go bust. And maybe the multi-baggers will raise good amount of financing, whether it's from existing investors in the cap structure or from new investors, is and will result in an exit as an investor. So there's a lot of dynamics at play, right? If the company is burning cash and has got bigger ambitions and capital needs to go to the company as primary and not secondary, well, then you have to be involved for a longer period. So obviously, at least I think the ecosystem is developed nicely where, there are many investors in sweet spots that are kind of overlapped and, can actively look at a secondary sale. So secondary sales between GPs have traded up. One of the things I also do for a living is actually secondary market advisory. But there I'm actually looking at portfolios of assets. Mm-hmm. So older portfolios where talk about some of the investments that may have or maybe litigation in India sometimes takes much longer than what you put on paper, right? You may have had DeMon, you may have had RERA, you may have had GST, you now have COVID. That's not an India specific thing, but I'm just telling you, there will always be interruptions in your valuation will get kicked down further. And now it's time to exit. Well, do you want to exit? If you're not fortunate to have raised the next fund, which has a different strategy and will stay involved at that later stage, that means you have to exit as the GP. And you may want to roll it over into a new vehicle. So you have to sell, you have to provide an exit to your investors. You are also a fiduciary. So there are a lot of people at the table here. And I think the exit conversation is very interesting. You do want to show that exit and return so that you can, have a kind of venture capitalist fund. But at times you have to portfolio level.
Correct. So what I hear, a very important point which I hear and noticed is that for the founders, the entrepreneur team which set up the startup or the early stage investors, they wanting to make an exit, probably they'll need to leave some room for the next level of investors to come in and make money. Probably they will not be able to exit at the full or the highest value of that particular startup. So that is a very important point which needs to be considered for an efficient exit, as if I may say, right? So Dheerajji, do you have any questions from the audience? Should we ask that if time permits?
Yeah, questions are there. Some questions are there. Mostly, a lot of questions are coming. Mostly are being answered by the Amitabh about the entry and exit. And as rightly said by him, it's not a art, it's also a science also. So it's another science. I think there's one question which can be asked by the, there's a question in front of me. What is the typical roadmap cycle of a startup from idea to go live, to market maturity, to diversification? So, let's take example, a chartered accountant led startup. They are in fintech area, because CAs are mostly on the finance technology built upon it. They have the idea, and from idea to when it has to be on live, from live to then a market maturity and to diversification, and then existing. So what is your key takeaway to the participant, how the valuation is going to change, when and what time they will go for any seed funding, then what level of seed funding they should apply, then after a market maturity, then what level of the investment further they have to look upon it, then what further in the diversification or market go to market complete, then what are the rate of what are the percentage again. I think you have rightly said you have to be save each penny kind of equity till the end. So over to the Amitabh for your answer. Unmute yourself, Amitabh.
Sorry, I just got busy in pulling up another Excel spreadsheet to show you something. So I missed the question. Can you just say it in one sentence? What's the question?
So my question basically is that let's assume there is a fintech is there led by the chartered accountant, and they have something, because a lot of youngsters who qualified recently 1 and 2 years before, and they are looking to start their own ventures. They have some concept idea in their mind, and then they wanted to have investors to pitch in the idea, or some people are in the participants are already invested their money and ready to for market, and what type of they will, how much they can look forward, and some people are already there. They already rolled out the market, and they have the good innovation and looking, already product is there and looking for the money. So all the three possibilities. What's your take to all the participants?
So I think you have the idea stage. We typically invest in idea stage. To me, the story is that if you have an idea, please write a book, give it to a publisher. I'll go to a shop and buy your book. But if you are at some execution stage, then it makes sense to me. So you'll have an ideation stage, you'll have team building stage, you'll have a angel stage, seed stage, pre-series A, etc., etc. Typical thumb rules are you typically raise between 25 lakhs to maybe 5 to 10 lakhs from your own resources. If you go back to my cap table, which I'm not going to show it right now, the cap table, it talks about friends, family, and fools. When you're raising money at that level, you will raise between 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs, or maybe 10 lakhs to 50 lakhs. Then you'll go to an angel investor and ask them for a crore and a half. Now at crore and a half, the angel doesn't want to own less than 10%. Typically. What happens is you fix the valuation. How? If you're saying that I'm going to raise 1.5 crore and I will not take less than 10%, then you fix the valuation of the company. So you keep on. So if you download the Excel spreadsheet from my this thing, you can actually do cap table planning to say how much money should I raise at each stage, such that at Series A I am not diluting below 50, but also watch out simultaneously at each stage what will be my traction in the company, so that market multiples will determine the valuation of the company at the pre-value. So that's my short answer at the moment. These are the stages that I talked about, and how you must keep track of the KPIs that you will reach in order to attract that valuation. Ultimately, it's the ventures.
In all questions, everything answered you very well. All three people, Rishi ji and Amtaji and Sudipta ji. So I think all the queries are solved, because you need to bring the table something traction. You need to have a honesty. You need to bring the value and some minimum MPV kind of product. Then only the things going to work out. Without any of the product or something or in right stage, nothing going to be value. And exactly what said by you, four things which you always look upon: team, of course, founders, teams, CFOs. This is the most important part for the value money aspects. Unless only the team is good, you don't have the rightly said by you. CEOs must for this business. Otherwise, there's no point of to invest in the business. I think it's great. Most of the theories which I'm seeing it from the from the participant already being answered by you. So I am handovering to the Hansa Chuji, who's the visionary leader of he's my very close friend, and we both together from North. But I'm settled down in Mumbai from last 25-30 years, and request Hansa ji to some of the things, and thanks to all participants across as of now. I'm saying that the numbers, the viewers are there. As of now, even Saturday, 8,000 plus members are there. So great number, 8,000 plus members are there. Morning was attended. So it's a great, all the participants are there. So over to Hansraj ji.
Thank you, Dheeraj bhai. I really touch upon. Yes, it was a wonderful session. It has served the purpose for which this is being taken forward. Naturally, the best part is that all the panelists, whether it is Amitabh ji, Rishi ji, and Sudipta ji, and the moderator Anshul has taken everything in a manner, so with a simplicity, with all things we understand the importance of each every ingredients of the whatsoever the final outcome of this 5-day long program was being expected with. participants in such a large number. Though in the last it remains 8,000 plus, but it started with 10,000 odd numbers. It's a great steps, and the subject, the this particular session I talk about the whether it is the strategy which everyone looks at how to make money and how to exit with, and valuation sides naturally it matters. The long term vision of the whether it is the founder or the investors also. So many things which has been cleared with a wherever the shadow was there or wherever the some kind of doubts were there in the minds of the participants or the so those things matlab are all through thanks to the each and every panelist, Sudipta ji, Rishi ji, Amitabh ji, to you also, and thanks to Anshul bhai for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and you have handled with the committee in a manner to be a part of that committee, inside of the committee. And my great thanks to my co-chairman also, who has drawn this all the 5-day program in a manner. Just a few months back, just maybe we have gone for another program which was a global program, which was connected with the more particularly a global week to make our members understand the opportunities across the globe for the chartered accountant fraternity. Same way, any idea comes to the minds of anyone where one feel like, yes, this has to be brought into this particular committee or the institute's different committees. Institutes functioning, you all know, it's a basically the council driven, and council has divided part of the committees. There are certain committees which are under some regulations, and there are certain committees which are being taken forward by the council in a manner so that it gives a development system to the our profession. This is a developmental committee. This committee is basically for the development of international trade, services, and the WTO. So this program is being undertaken by this committee looking into the need of the hour, because it's a for the professional development, for the clarity of the better understanding of the subject related with, and naturally going with the better opportunities for the our members. And the speakers comes like a giver. You all are there to give back to the professional fraternity those who needs it. So I'm very grateful and thankful to each one of you. Thanks to Dheeraj bhai also, and thanks to the team of our secretariat also headed by Monica, Jen, who leads the team, and Tusangni is the another officer with us. The other committee members also are such a sincerity and such a dedication. They have organized this program. Thanks to the all the stakeholders, and more so the participants, which are an asset for this program as such. They have been there in such a large numbers. My thanks goes to each and every participants also for taking this program and making this a great success. The technical support people also, those who are there, digital learning hub also, who takes this to the not only live at only for the purpose of live only, subsequent also putting into the ICAI TV also. So they it's a complete efforts of so many others. Those could not be recognized with. I'm very grateful and thankful to them also.
So lastly, I wanted to tell all the participants, this program going to be available recorded function on the DLH platform. The people who missed it can access this link. And lastly, I want to miss that, I love the, Amitabh, last point, which is said that back to, prepare the 4 years matrix as of now. How much you going to dilute. That's the biggest key takeaway for me, at least, which I can say. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.